It all kicks off on a freezing mountain in the middle of the night, with a heavy blizzard coming down hard. And then we see a bearded man warming himself by a fire, sipping on a hot drink. Suddenly, footsteps in the snow reveal someone is approaching his camp. The bearded man senses the presence and calmly keeps drinking while staring into the darkness. The one who arrives is our main character, who hears his target ask if he isn't a little too fancy for a place like this. Jay then shows him his phone with a picture of his target and says he could barely recognize him. Simon Jones is impressed he was found and asks if the Union sent him. Right then he recognizes the assassin in the suit as the legendary Jay, an Asian hitman. Jay introduces himself and Simon says a guy named Johnny had already told him a lot about him. Simon mentions that Johnny is Jay's only friend, but Jay denies it, saying he's just a colleague. Right after, he asks if Jay is from the same country as Johnny, since they seem so close. Our MC replies that he isn't, and Simon realizes his comment came off a little racist. The campfire keeps crackling in the silence that has fallen between the two assassins. Meanwhile, the two men exchange intense stares, sizing each other up before making a move. The flames pop one more time, breaking the silence and ratcheting up the tension. Without warning, Jay lunges forward with a lightning-fast punch aimed at Simon Jones's face. In response, the bearded dude kicks the campfire right at him, creating an explosion of embers. With the distraction, Simon grabs a sharp wooden spear that was hidden in the snow. Seizing the opportunity, he attacks our main character, who quickly gets up to defend himself. At the last second, Jay manages to block the tip of the spear using only his small knife. Our MC's gaze remains focused and cold, even with the weapon pointed right at him. Simon then puts all his strength into the attack, trying to break through the assassin's defense. The guy in the suit withstands the impact, holding his blade firm against the wood. From there, Jay manages to deflect the blow, pushing the spear aside with a swift movement. Realizing his opponent's strength, the target prepares a new attack with his makeshift weapon. The bearded man spins and tries a horizontal strike, but the hitman dodges it perfectly. Right after, our MC counterattacks with a precise slash to his adversary's side. The blade hits Simon's body dead on, and he cries out in pain from the wound. Even injured, the target manages to grab Jay's arm to prevent a second strike. Because of this, Simon uses his other arm to swing the spear in a desperate attack. So Jay manages to break free and throws his knife with all his might at the bearded man. The blade hits Simon's arm, making him drop a hidden hatchet, and our MC snags it out of the air. With the new weapon in hand, the guy in the suit advances with a grim look, ready to finish the job. Simon, now on the ground and all beaten up, admits that the legend of Jay was no exaggeration. In his final moments, he asks if the Union sent him there because he sided with Johnny. Our MC confirms that the organization is not at all happy with his friend's new company. The target laughs and says it's much more than that, and that the Union wants to wipe out Johnny and the entire company. Seeing as he's going to be taken out anyway, Simon asks for Jay's honest opinion on who is in the right. He explains that ever since the Union monopolized all the jobs, every assassin has to depend on them. Therefore, anyone who gets on the organization's blacklist simply can't find work anymore. And even the employees who aren't hitmen treat the assassins like they're absolute garbage. Simon says that the people with no respect for the industry became the industry, bleeding heavily. He asks again if Jay really doesn't think the Union is in the wrong. The guy in the suit simply replies that he doesn't make those kinds of judgments about things. The target seems to understand and, with a last breath, says he's looking forward to the future. Jay's reflection appears in Simon's eye as he passes on, hoping to see what the future holds. With the job done, our main character turns and walks away, leaving the body in the snow. As he walks, he thinks about Simon's words and realizes this was just the beginning. The scene changes to a sunny day, showing the imposing Union building in the heart of the city. Inside the building, someone informs Jay that they've sent over the data for the next target for him to review. Receiving the message, he understands that this new mission was exactly what Simon had expected. Upon opening the file on his phone, the assassin discovers that his new target is his colleague, Johnny. At that moment, a flashback begins to when Johnny invited him for a drink, calling him a friend. Jay remembers correcting him, saying they were just co-workers as they clinked their glasses. He narrates that the Union would team up assassins for missions, and it was on one of those that he met Johnny. After a messy job, Johnny approaches to formally introduce himself to his new partner. The two shake hands, with Jay introducing himself in his usual short and direct manner. Right after, Johnny comments that it was the first time he'd worked with another Asian assassin. Excited about the partnership, he suggests they become friends, but Jay turns down the offer. With a smile, Johnny says that's great, because our MC had just made a new friend. Our main character tries to explain that he doesn't need friends, but Johnny insists he should take the chance. From then on, Jay narrates that Johnny remained friendly and became the only person close to him. Another time, at a bar, Johnny calls him a close colleague and asks if he wants to get even closer. Seeing our MC's surprise, Johnny suggests they become business partners. He reveals that he's starting his own company and will no longer work for the Union. The reason is simple: he's sick and tired of the organization taking a huge cut of their pay. Because of that, he invites Jay to join his new venture, promising success. But our main character immediately turns down the offer, leaving Johnny surprised by the quick refusal. The reason is that the assassin believes life, just like work, should be lived alone. Johnny sighs and admits that deep down he was already expecting that answer from his colleague. Jay then asks why he even bothered to ask, and his friend says he still had to try. With a serious look, Johnny warns him that if his business takes off, Jay might end up being sent to take him out. Back in the present, our main character understands the warning and confirms the target is Johnny Wong. The person in the room corrects him, saying the target is the entire company, which leaves Jay quite surprised. The man confirms the mission and reveals the reward, $25 million. Our MC then asks why the Union would pay him so much instead of using their own forces. The man explains that a direct attack would cause too much damage, and they prefer a precision missile. He continues, saying that few assassins can handle a job like this, and Jay is the most reliable one. Hearing this, Jay accepts the contract but sets one condition. He promises to crush Johnny's company. In exchange for destroying the company, the assassin demands that Johnny's life be spared. Jay reminds the man that almost no one else can do this job, and if he doesn't accept, the Union will be in a tight spot. So the executive agrees to the terms, as long as Johnny is left unable to ever get back on his feet, and Jay agrees. The scene cuts to a view of the city as the sun sets on the horizon. Leaving the building, our main character walks down the street and wonders why he made that demand. He reflects on whether he just didn't want to be the one responsible for taking his former colleague's life. As he's thinking, a little boy approaches him with a smile and offers him some bracelets. The boy says the bracelets have a mysterious power and that the assassin might need it. Curious, our main character asks the boy what kind of power it is. The boy smiles and reveals that it's the power to live a new life. The boy's words surprise him, and Jay decides to buy one of the bracelets. With the bracelet on his wrist, Jay decides it's time for a fresh start. He thinks that after finishing this job right, he'll finally be able to start over. The reward is $25 million, and he considers retiring with the cash. Suddenly, a mob of assassins runs towards him, ready to attack. As the enemies close in, he wonders what he would even do after retiring. Our MC realizes he's never once stopped to think about that in his entire life as a hitman. Elsewhere, Johnny observes the city from his luxurious office, a glass of whiskey in hand. Just then, Jay stumbles into the room, all banged up after fighting an army of assassins. Seeing his friend's condition, Johnny offers him a drink and remarks that his company has really grown. Without waiting for an answer, the company boss tips the glass into our main character's mouth. After downing it all, Jay smashes the glass on the floor, showing his frustration. He then announces that Johnny's company is finished and that he himself destroyed it today. Johnny retorts with an annoyed look that the assassin doesn't look to be in one piece either. Without wasting time, our MC throws a flashbang grenade that explodes right in his former colleague's face. The blast sends the man flying backward as the window panes shatter. Even dazed by the explosion, our main character barely has time to react. From the smoke, Johnny rushes forward, ready to attack. In a flash, he's on top of Jay, preparing a quick and precise strike. With that, the company boss pulls a knife that was hidden at his waist. Jay tries to get up to defend himself, but his tired body won't respond to his commands. Seeing the situation, Johnny grabs him by the collar and yells, demanding to know why he's doing all this. Without waiting for an answer, he attacks his former colleague with the blade, not hesitating for a second. With eyes red with rage, he demands to know why Jay is doing this to him. The knife gets dangerously close, and the glint of the blade reflects in Jay's eyes. At the last possible moment, our main character uses his last ounce of strength to deflect the attack. Seizing the opening, Jay retaliates with a powerful punch that connects with Johnny's face. The assassin is left breathless after using all his remaining energy on that one blow. The punch lands with full force right on his old friend's chin. Because of that, Johnny drops to the floor completely knocked out, and the fight is over. Jay then starts thinking about how to incapacitate him to fulfill his part of the deal. But our main character realizes he's also too injured to continue the mission. Suddenly, he hears clapping and a voice praising his impressive performance. Our MC turns around and asks who the mysterious man who just appeared is. The man in the suit says he just came to make sure the job was done correctly. At that moment, red laser sights appear on Johnny's body, lying on the floor. The armed guards take aim at Johnny, and our main character desperately tries to stop them. Just then, one of the guards fires, but the shot ends up hitting Jay in the process. Even wounded, he throws himself in front of Johnny to shield him with his own body. Furious, our MC yells that sparing his colleague's life was part of the deal. He falls to his knees, feeling the pain of the wound, and the man tells him not to get so worked up. The hitman glares at the man with a look full of hatred, ready to fight back. The executive adjusts his glasses and calmly says that in the end, it's all just business. He explains that the union realized that people like Jay and Johnny are a threat. Because they are too exceptional, they pose a risk to the organization's business. Enraged, our main character yells that this isn't business, and his eyes glow blue. Ignoring the deal, the man says that people like them are a liability to the union, and so the guards open fire without mercy, riddling our main character's body with bullets. The impact throws Jay backward, and he falls lifelessly to the office floor. At that exact moment, the bracelet on his wrist begins to glow with a bluish light. From there, a powerful energy envelops him and transports him to a cosmic space. The light concentrates on the bracelet, and an energy butterfly appears over his hand. Suddenly, Jay's consciousness awakens inside a car on a dark street. He raises his hand and sees the glowing bracelet as he wonders if he's alive. Outside, a man on his phone says he got distracted and ran over a delivery guy. Our MC realizes he's in Korea and hears the man say he was drunk. He understands that he's been reincarnated into the body of the delivery guy the drunk driver just took out. While the driver thinks about making a run for it, our main character calls out to him, startling him. Without giving the guy time to react, Jay lands a punch with all his might right in his face. He continues to beat down the man, who, lying on the ground, screams for the police. With the driver knocked out, Jay realizes he passed on in America, but was reborn in Korea. He reflects on having passed away in America and being reborn in Korea, not understanding a thing. But now, with a determined look, our main character knows exactly what he needs to do. He vows to get revenge on everyone who betrayed and offed him for the sake of their business. With that, Jay gets into the drunk driver's car and realizes he really is in Korea. It then dawns on him that he can't just drive to America to get his revenge. And even if he could, the union isn't the kind of organization you can just find hanging around. Tired of it all, the guy decides he needs a break after being taken out and brought back to life. So, he decides to go to the original body owner's home to get some rest. To do that, he thinks about how assassins need to be delicate to obtain information. Nowadays, to get someone's data, you just need to hack into their phone. And since he's in the original owner's body, using facial recognition is super easy. The phone unlocks instantly, and our main character has access to all the information. With the address in hand, he arrives at the small apartment of the body's former owner. The assassin tosses the keys on the table and notices the place is nothing special. When he opens the fridge, he sees there's no food at all, with only a bottle of water left. Using the phone, he finds out everything about the life of the body's previous owner. He was a 27-year-old guy who had failed at life and was drowning in debt. Our main character throws the empty bottle away, thinking about the guy's failed life. And to make matters worse, the poor guy got taken out by a drunk driver in the middle of the street. Suddenly, someone starts pounding on the door, shouting the name Jin Jae-hyun. He checks his phone and sees it's already past 1 in the morning and doesn't understand the situation. Opening the door, our main character faces 2 men in suits and asks who they are. The guys say they're loan sharks, and they've come to collect the debt with sky-high interest. It's then that Jay understands they were the creditors of this body's previous owner. He peeks down the hallway and sees that the apartment is number 301. A neighbor from the apartment next door is watching the commotion through a crack in her door. Out of patience, the loan sharks break down the door and barge into the apartment. One of them finds the car key on the table while the other complains about the empty fridge. The boss of the group threatens him for buying a car instead of paying off his debt. Jay then tells them to just take the car, since he doesn't have the money to pay. One of the loan sharks gets angry and says he can't make that decision on his own, but their boss cuts him off and tells his goons to gather around. He explains that it's better to take the car than to go back to their boss empty-handed, so they all head down to the parking lot to check out the vehicle's condition. The leader whispers to his partner to lowball the car's value so they can make a bigger profit. Right after, he says the vehicle's value barely covers the interest on the debt. The loan shark points out a dent and says, "You can tell the car's been in an accident." Our main character then asks if just looking at the outside is enough for an appraisal. Suddenly, he grabs the head of the loan shark boss, sending the man into a panic. From there, Jay forcefully smashes the guy's face into the car window so he can see inside. The other 2 goons are left completely shocked and frozen by the scene. Without wasting a second, our main character goes after the 2 men to finish them off. He lands a precise elbow strike, breaking one of the loan shark's noses instantly. Right after, Jay finishes off the last goon with a powerful punch to the stomach. Seeing his men on the ground, the boss trembles with fear, and Jay realizes he's a coward. He stares down the loan shark and thinks that guys like this only have 2 options: run or panic. At that moment, the man opts for panic and pulls something from inside his jacket. Our main character goes on high alert, expecting the guy to pull out a firearm. But the loan shark pulls out a knife, and Jay remembers that things are different in Korea. With the blade in hand, the man lunges forward in a quick, desperate attack. Effortlessly, our main character dodges and disarms the loan shark with a single move. The boss of the group is left completely bewildered, looking up at the sky in confusion. With that, Jay seizes the opportunity and lands a full-force punch to his face. He then finishes the beatdown with a kick that sends the loan shark to the ground. With incredible reflexes, our main character perfectly catches the man's knife in mid-air. He then plunges the blade into the ground right next to the loan shark boss's eye. With a deathly glare, he threatens the guys, saying that next time he won't be so merciful. Given the situation, he tells the man to take the car and get out of there for good. The loan shark gets in the car with his unconscious goons and drives off, fuming. Through the rearview mirror, he watches Jay standing there and wonders what kind of psycho he just messed with. Inside the car, the loan shark wonders why Jay, being so strong, took a beating earlier. Watching the car disappear, our main character thinks it's a good thing he got rid of the stolen vehicle. The scene then focuses on his apartment window, where the light is still on. But just as he's about to go inside, he hears his neighbor call his name and gets annoyed, since all he wanted was to sleep. The woman appears in the hallway, and Jay wonders why she's talking to him. With a smile, she reveals that she was spying and saw everything that happened outside. The woman says she was going to call the cops if he got beat up, but he was the one who beat up the other guys. She comments that he's strong, and Jay asks if she's going to report him instead of the loan sharks. The neighbor replies that she won't, and that she's actually become a little interested in him. Not paying her much mind, our main character says he needs to rest and goes into his apartment. The girl is left standing in the hallway, speechless, as he simply shuts the door in her face. Finally alone, the guy throws himself onto the bed, completely exhausted from the day he's had. Due to the accumulated fatigue, he passes out and falls into a deep sleep almost instantly. Sometime later, Jay wakes up starving and decides to go get a burger. Right after, we see the sign of a 24-hour burger joint open in the city. At the diner, he's eating a burger, and remembers that the reason he's there is because of Johnny. In a flashback, Johnny asks why our main character always chooses that particular burger joint. He replies that it's good, but his friend expected a well-traveled assassin to have better taste. Jay explains that the burger there is perfect because it tastes the same no matter where you are in the world. Even the fries are standardized, and Johnny asks if that's why he likes the place. The assassin confirms it, because eating the wrong thing in another country could ruin an entire mission. So he says the 24-hour spot helps him maintain perfect condition for the job. Johnny gets annoyed for being won over by his logic, and Jay says it's because he's right. Back in the present, our main character remembers that the Union took out Johnny without a second thought. He thinks about how he was also taken out by them, but for some reason, he was the only one who came back to life. Suddenly, a woman with a tray approaches, complaining that she's starving. The woman walks right past him, and Jay is left confused, not understanding what's happening. She sits down at another table, and the guy gets a feeling he's seen her somewhere before. At that moment, the woman's hand holding her food starts to glow with a bluish light. The energy transfers to the bracelet on Jay's wrist, which also glows, surprising him. Our main character stares at his own hand and wonders why the blue light appeared again. He then looks at the woman and realizes her hand is glowing too. The pink-haired woman turns to him, looking equally surprised by the situation. At that, the two just stare at each other in silence as the energy connects them. The woman then asks if he is Jay, and our main character wants to know how she knows him. He starts connecting the dots and remembers his former appearance as an assassin. Seeing an image of Johnny superimposed over the woman, Jay asks if she is his old colleague. The blue energy in their hands pulses, confirming the identity of the two hitmen. The woman then confirms that she is Johnny, leaving our main character shocked by the revelation. Filled with rage, Johnny lunges forward, shouting that he's the friend Jay took out without mercy. The assassin is paralyzed by the accusation and can't react in time. Because of this, Johnny tackles him to the floor of the diner with a well-aimed blow. As he chokes him, he yells that he thought they were real friends. Our main character understands his anger and desperately tries to explain. With difficulty, Jay says it was the Union that took them out, and Johnny stops his attack, surprised. Still on top of him, Johnny asks if the Union also took him out, and our main character confirms it. Suddenly, a diner employee shows up and yells that they can't fight in there. Johnny gets off him and apologizes as the employee starts cleaning the floor. The employee continues to mop the floor that the two messed up during their intense fight. Then he grumbles that if they were in such a hurry, they should have just gotten a room. Now sitting at a table, Johnny, with his arms crossed, glares at our main character, annoyed. He questions him for refusing his partnership and then accepting a job to save him. The former colleague calls him weird, and Jay says that passing on and coming back to life is way weirder. Johnny leans in to check out his new body and complains about what's missing down there. After finishing all the food, the guy wonders why all of this happened to them. He then remembers the bracelet and the blue light that connected the two of them moments before. Our main character asks if Johnny bought a strange bracelet from a kid on the street. With that, Jay remembers the seller's words about the power to live a new life. He reveals that he also bought the same item, and Johnny realizes the bracelet is the cause. Faced with the situation, the former colleague asks what our main character is going to do now. With a dark look, our main character says they need to get revenge on the Union. But Johnny corrects him, saying he wants to know the plan for Asterisk right now. Asterisk, leaving Jay confused. His old colleague then asks if he's found the home of his body's owner, and Jay confirms it. So Johnny stands up and says they should head over there, but Jay is too tired. The woman explains that she used a lot of energy digging herself out of the ground, leaving our main character baffled. She reveals that when she woke up, she was already buried and had to dig her way out. With that, Johnny says he needs a shower, and Jay agrees that it's the right thing to do. From there, the two head to our main character's small apartment together. Once they arrive, Johnny goes straight to the bathroom to take a shower and relax. Meanwhile, our main character waits, sitting on the bed in his new room. After the shower, the two go for a walk, and Johnny says she would have hated him forever. She explains that if the Union's plan had worked, she would have ended up being taken out by his hands. Jay looks at her, and she asks if he still hates her enough to take her out right now. Our main character says no, and Johnny stretches with her arms up. With a smile, she says he already paid for his choices by losing his own life. Our main character is confused by her words and wonders what he's supposed to have realized. Suddenly, The bathroom door opens, and Johnny praises the shower's hot water. Hearing that she's finished her shower, Jay turns around and is completely shocked by the scene. Johnny walks out of the bathroom with only a towel on and complains that her hair takes forever to dry. Seeing this, our main character covers his eyes and yells, asking why she came out like that. She retorts, asking if she should put on dirty clothes after getting clean, and Jay understands the logic. Out of patience, he throws a change of clothes at her and tells her to get dressed already. Later, the two get ready for bed, with Johnny on the floor and Jay on the bed. Lying on the makeshift mattress, the woman asks how he plans to get revenge on the Union. He repeats that he's going to return the favor, and she insists on knowing how he'll do it. Our main character cryptically replies that he's going to use business for his revenge. He then ends the conversation and tells her to get some sleep, as they can talk tomorrow. The next day, the two take a cab, and Johnny complains about the calls from the girl's father. On the way to her house, Jay comments that Johnny's new face looks a lot like his old one. She jokes that her original face was more handsome, and our main character laughs at the joke. Johnny notes that he's reading his phone in Korean and that they can still speak the language. She remembers news stories about people waking up from comas, speaking another language, and wonders if that's their case. Just then, the car stops, and the driver announces they've arrived at their destination. So the two get out of the car and stare at the place. A bit surprised, what they're faced with is a gigantic mansion right in front of them. Johnny then walks up to the gate and rings the doorbell to get inside. A surprised voice comes through the intercom, asking how Sumi managed to get there. Our main character is confused by the situation and doesn't understand a thing that's happening. The girl's father's voice tells her to come in, and Johnny replies that she's on her way. With a smile, the woman tells Jay that it looks like this is her new home. She explains that she needs to sort out the situation and that she'll head to his place later. Jay then returns to his apartment and thinks that Johnny is going to have some trouble with her new family. Lying on his bed, he reflects that he was lucky to be reborn into the body of someone who lives alone. Looking at his phone, our main character notices that the previous owner didn't talk to anyone. With a slight smile, he thinks that he also lived alone until the day he passed on. Our main character reflects that he lived his whole life without family or friends. He drinks some water and thinks that Johnny would be mad if he said without friends. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, and he immediately thinks it's his old colleague. When he opens the door, the guy is surprised she got there faster than he expected. But the next moment, a knife lunges towards him with full force. With incredible reflexes, our main character manages to dodge the blow at the last second. The intruder is a man in a hat and glasses who tries to hit him again with the blade. Without hesitation, the man charges at our main character to finish the attack. Due to the force of the blow, the assassin ends up being pushed back into the apartment, so he uses his hand to grab the blade and prevent the deadly cut. The man in the hat is completely shocked to see that he stopped the knife. Seizing the opening, Jay twists the guy's wrist and throws him to the floor to disarm him. The knife flies through the air and ends up stuck in the apartment's wooden floor. The intruder glares at him with a look of pure hatred, even after losing his weapon. At that, the two stare each other down for a moment before continuing the fight. With his eyes glowing blue, our main character prepares to counterattack. From there, he lands a full-force punch to the intruder's chin. The man in the hat hits the floor hard, completely stunned by the blow. Without wasting time, Jay puts pressure on him and asks who sent him there. The guy spits out some blood, and our main character suspects who is behind the attack. With a grim look, he then asks if it was the Union that sent the assassin. The intruder doesn't say a word and remains on the floor with his face all messed up. Nearby, the fallen knife on the floor catches the man's attention. Seeing his chance, he makes a desperate dash for the blade to rearm himself. But our main character is faster and lands another punch, shattering his glasses. Because of that, the intruder falls once again with nowhere left to run. Jay picks up the knife and thinks that there's no way the Union could know about his current situation. From there, he approaches the fallen man, ready to get some information. Without mercy, our main character uses the blade to pressure the assassin. The knife pierces the guy's shoulder, and he screams in pain from the severe wound. With the knife pressed against him, Jay demands to know who sent him there. The intruder trembles in fear and stammers, unable to answer the question. The scene cuts to Johnny's new family, with her brother and sister sitting down. The girl's father complains that she disappeared and left everyone worried about her. He says her siblings were also distressed, but Johnny notices they just look scared. Right then, she understands that the two of them had something to do with the girl's passing. Later, the brother goes outside and yells into his phone, demanding to know what happened. He complains that the hired assassin swore he did the job and asks if the target came back to life. Out of patience, the guy tells the person on the other end of the line to check the front gate cameras. The person informs him that Somi arrived in a taxi with a man and that they already know where the two came from. The brother then orders the assassin to find and erase the man who was with her, as he is a liability. Furious, he yells that this is a warranty job, since the service went wrong and the girl came back alive. The guy complains that the hitman took the cash and still did a completely sloppy job. At that moment, his sister approaches and calls his name, surprising the guy. The woman asks what happened with Somi, and the brother replies that the hired assassin failed. The brother says that actually all of this is for their own good, and Ju-kyung doesn't understand. Hearing this, the woman begs him to stop and reminds him that Somi is still their sister. Annoyed, the guy yells that she's the daughter of a mistress and that they are only half-siblings. He reminds her that their mother's illness got worse when she found out about Somi and her mother. He explains that their father might give the company to Somi and asks if their mother would be happy about that. In a rage, the brother yells Han Ju-kyung's name, showing all his frustration. Right after, he tells her to listen to him because, in the end, all of this is for her own good. The scene then cuts back to our main character's apartment at night. The intruder reveals that the person who ordered the hit on him also ordered the hit on Somi. Our main character thinks that if he takes him out now, cleaning up the body would be a huge problem. He reflects that he's no longer a professional assassin and can't just call a cleanup crew. Meanwhile, the intruder wonders how our main character can be so strong and fast. Seeing an opening, the man decides he's going to attack him again while he's distracted. But Jay notices the movement and stops him before the guy can even make a move. The intruder realizes it won't work, and that his instincts and experience are warning him of the danger. With a deathly glare, our main character senses that the intruder is no match for him. He then asks the man if he wants to live, and the guy confirms it with a trembling voice. So Jay tells him to leave and say that he didn't find him at the apartment. The guy also warns the assassin not to accept any more jobs related to them. Finally, he threatens him, saying that if he ever sees him again, he'll end up gone for good. The intruder leaves, and the door to apartment 301 slams shut. Once outside, the assassin gets a call asking if the job was done. The guy lies, saying the target wasn't there, and the client complains about the shoddy work. Out of patience, he says he'll refund the money and asks not to be contacted again. At the mansion, Somi's brother is completely baffled when he hears about the refund. With that, the guy gets furious and starts yelling into the phone, thinking it's a joke. At that moment, Johnny walks by him and, with a mocking smile, says it was a good job. The woman then turns and walks away, leaving her brother standing there, speechless. Enraged, the man orders his subordinate to find another assassin who can do the job right. Meanwhile, Johnny goes through Somi's phone and starts to understand the girl's situation. With the new information, Johnny discovers that the girl's father is Han Kyung-moon, the chairman of the HK group. The two siblings who welcomed her are Han Ju-sok and Han Ju-kyung, the children of the first wife. The first wife passed away from an illness, and the second, who was Somi's mother, passed away in an accident. He wonders if the siblings took out the girl for the inheritance, and from the looks on their faces, it seems so. At that moment, the older sister approaches and calls her Somi in a worried voice. The woman then asks if she's okay and what happened to make her disappear like that. Johnny pretends not to remember anything and says she woke up on a hill after drinking too much. Seeing this, he wonders if the girl is just testing him to see what he really knows. But Ju-kyung holds her hand and thanks her for coming back, leaving Johnny quite surprised. Looking at the woman's face, he realizes she seems genuinely worried about her sister. On top of that, he also ends up finding his new little sister pretty cute and is quite charmed. Suddenly, the older brother approaches from behind, observing their conversation. Johnny then takes the opportunity and places a tracker on Ju-kyung's hand without anyone noticing. She warns him to be careful because their brother is going to try to get rid of him again. The woman cries for almost having lost her sister and for being too pathetic to help her. The woman cries, and Johnny corrects her, calling her sister once again to calm her down. He tells Ju Kyung not to cry and promises that he will make sure nothing bad happens. The girl is confused by this attitude and wonders if Somi always talked like that. Later, Johnny calls Jay and says he's figured out the situation and asks if he's okay. He's surprised to hear that an assassin came after him but trusts that he handled it. Jay confirms it was the same person who ordered Somi's hit, and his colleague says the guy is persistent. Our main character explains that the hitman didn't know the client's name because he used a middleman. He says he needs to deal with the guy before anything else, and goes back to eating his snack. Johnny reminds him of their conversation about getting revenge on the Union using business as a weapon. She says the way he handled the organization was right, and that's why they wanted him gone. Our main character gets thoughtful and asks her what the plan is to start this so-called company. She gets annoyed that he doesn't have a plan but reveals that there's a shortcut to becoming a boss. Our main character asks what that would be, and she reveals the answer right away. The solution is to simply buy a company that's already up and running, and Jay gets the idea instantly. Night falls on the city as the two assassins begin to plot their revenge. While brushing his teeth, our main character thinks about acquiring a business and regrets not asking if the hitman had an organization. He's still in the bathroom when he suddenly hears a strange noise coming from the front door. Right after, someone starts pounding on the door with great force, getting his attention. With that, he wonders if the hitman from before came back, even after the warning he gave him. The person outside yells the name Jin Jae-hyun, and our main character recognizes the voice immediately. Opening the door, he faces the loan sharks again and asks why they came back. The guys, all bruised up, angrily shout that they obviously came to collect his debt. Suddenly, their boss appears, and the two goons bow, calling the guy boss. Our main character is confused by the situation and wonders who this supposed boss is. The blonde man in a white suit then introduces himself as the head of the loan shark firm. With a smile on his face, the assassin realizes he's found the perfect business to take over. The scene cuts to a car with a license plate ending in 6418 parked nearby. Someone shows a lighter to the boss and asks if he got that instead of the money. This is Baek Gyum-tae, the president of the illegal loan shark operation called Platinum Finance. The goons apologize, and the boss complains that he needs to pay tribute and they haven't collected anything. What makes him even angrier is that his men got beat up by the debtor. In a rage, he kicks one of the goons and yells that the target is just a delivery guy. The goon insists that the guy was strong, and the boss scoffs, saying he watches too many movies. Out of patience, the blonde man decides he'll go handle the situation personally. He says he's going to see with his own eyes who this so-called tough guy is. Back in the present, the boss asks if our main character is the one who beat up his employees. The loan shark sizes him up and says he doesn't look like much, then tells him to come with them. He then explains that he has a special way of dealing with debtors like him. The goons think he's going to refuse and fight back, being from special forces or something. But our main character surprises everyone and agrees to go with them right away. The loan sharks are left completely baffled and wonder why he gave up so easily. The boss thinks he recognized the difference in their levels and that he has fighting experience. Later, the goons are outside smoking, still confused about everything. One of them wonders why he followed them, and the other says he has no idea who the guy is. The scene then shows our main character tied to a chair inside a warehouse. Tied up, our main character surveys the place and the loan shark's office. He thinks about how hard it is to control the temperature in a place like that. Next, the guy looks at the makeshift gym and asks how much the rent is for the place. The loan shark boss approaches and asks if he came there to look at real estate. He says that people like him prefer to string the debtor along to make more off the interest. The loan shark boss explains that's why even banks have early payoff fees. But he says that with deadbeat debtors, the best thing to do is get the principal as fast as possible. So he tells him to pay the debt, and our main character asks how he's supposed to do that. The loan shark tells him to call everyone he knows and ask for help to pay it off. Our main character thinks that no one would lend money to someone in debt to loan sharks. With a wicked smile, the man says that what he needs is some desperation in his voice. From there, he orders his goons to attack him, to put that so-called desperation into him. The guys beat him with baseball bats without any mercy. Meanwhile, The boss just watches everything, smoking calmly. All beaten up, our main character begs them to stop and says he'll call anyone. The boss smiles and says his voice is now perfect for asking for money. With that, one of the goons hands our main character his phone to make the call. But instead of making a call, he uses the phone to break free from the ropes with a quick move. One of the goons is in shock, not understanding how he got free so easily. Without wasting time, Jay goes after the guys and hits the first one in the face with the phone. Right after, he takes down the second loan shark, leaving all the others terrified. From there, our main character uses the phone's flash to blind the last goon. The guy screams in pain from the surprise attack, and Jay finishes him off with another blow. With the 3 goons on the floor, he prepares to face the real challenge. The warehouse light flickers, creating a tense atmosphere for the final showdown. Our main character then slowly walks towards the loan shark boss. Bai Gyomtai yells for his men outside to come in, but no one answers. The other loan sharks outside pretend not to hear anything and just stand there, scared. Seeing that he's alone, the boss decides to fight and gets ready for combat. Without waiting any longer, he lunges forward with a flying kick aimed at our main character. But our main character blocks the kick with his arm without any difficulty. He realizes the boss is fast and retaliates with a solid punch to his face. The assassin's eyes remain cold and focused on his opponent during the exchange. The blow lands squarely on the loan shark, who feels the force of the impact immediately. Jay understands that the guy is strong and isn't the boss for no reason. The loan shark gets angry that he easily dodged all of his punches. Confident, the blonde man says a gym rat can't handle a real street fight. From there, he attacks again, but our main character dodges perfectly. The boss is hit dead on and is completely surprised by the force of the blow. Without giving him time to react, our main character continues the barrage of punches. The loan shark tries to defend himself, but can't stop the rain of rapid-fire blows. Right after, Jay finishes the combo with a powerful kick to his opponent. The impact sends the boss to the floor, completely knocked out, and the fight is over. Without mercy, our main character continues the beatdown to secure his victory. With one last powerful punch, he knocks out the loan shark boss for good. The loan shark begs him to stop, but Jay says there's still no desperation in his voice. The man is completely terrified by our main character's glare. At that, he begs for his life and asks if they can talk about it. With a smile, Jay agrees and asks if they can talk business now. A while later, the boss, all beaten up, hears from Jay that he's taking over the company. The loan shark angrily asks if this is one of those hostile takeovers he's always hearing about. The blonde man calls him old-fashioned, and Jay replies that this is how the underworld works. He then sits down and says he's going to explain the details of how things work around here. Seoul's underworld is ruled by 2 major organizations called Sogwang and Dongshin. Platinum Finance is his, but since it operates in Seogwang's territory, they pay tribute to them. Jay grabs a water, and the loan shark explains that there are guys like the Union around there too. He warns that Seogwang won't just stand by if he messes with their territory. Calmly, our main character says he'll just take over Seogwang too, shocking the boss. The loan shark tries to explain that he doesn't understand the scale of these organizations' power. He asks if Jay can even imagine the power of someone who controls half of a city like Seoul. Our main character says he'll take Seogwang first, and then Dongshin after that. At that point, the loan shark realizes the guy's plan is to take over the entire Seoul underworld. Faced with this situation, Bai Gyomtai is certain that our main character is completely nuts. Suddenly, one of the goons announces that Seogwang is here to collect the tribute. This makes the loan shark boss tense and surprised by the sudden interruption. Just then, a man in a blue suit walks in, looking very confident. The blonde man then tells the protagonist to stay quiet and that they'll talk after the guy leaves. But our hero remains silent, just observing the whole situation. Baek greets the newcomer, who finds the warm reception and his bruised face strange. With that, Manager Kim asks what happened to the loan shark boss's face. He ignores the blonde man's condition and says he just needs the money he came for today. But suddenly, our protagonist states that he won't be getting any money today. The man in the blue suit turns and asks who he is. So the assassin says he's the new boss. Right after, he announces that they will no longer pay tribute to Seogwang. Baek is shocked and thinks the protagonist is crazy for challenging the organization. Manager Kim then asks the blonde man who that guy is and throws his briefcase on the floor. Awkwardly, the boss replies that the young man was originally a debtor to his company. The man in the blue suit doesn't understand a thing and kicks the loan shark, demanding a better explanation. At this, he grabs him by the collar, and the blonde man thinks it's too embarrassing to tell. Manager Kim threatens him, saying a debtor defeated him and has now taken over the company. Hearing this, the man suspects the protagonist was sent by the rival organization, Dongshin. But before he can finish, our hero lunges forward and lands a punch on his face. He continues the barrage of hits and asks why he's treating the boss like that. Baek is worried about the situation, but admits it was satisfying to watch. Lying on the ground, the collector accuses the young man of being from Dongshin and invading his territory, but the protagonist denies being from Dongshin, leaving the guy on the floor completely confused. He then says this is his territory and tells the man to go back and inform his company. The former loan shark boss's jaw drops, not believing what the young man is doing. Meanwhile, the collector on the floor wonders why the assassin is letting him go. With his face all bruised, he agrees and says he will inform his company about this. Then the man gets up and stumbles out of the warehouse to carry out the order. Baek gets desperate, thinking that if he goes back like this, they'll think he's in on it. He then tries to stop Manager Kim and says he'll explain everything, but the protagonist questions him. The blonde man ignores the young man and runs after the man from Seogwang to explain everything in detail. Our hero just stands there watching them leave, not seeming to care much. Outside, the collector gets into the car, and the former loan shark boss tries to stop him from leaving. Already inside the vehicle, the manager yells it back, saying it's all over for him now. The blonde man begs for a moment to explain, and the man says it better be a quick one. He then tells him that the protagonist was a debtor who roughed up his men during a collection, and that's why he brought him there, but he ended up getting beat up again and losing the company. The collector finds the story nonsensical and asks if one guy defeated everyone. Manager Kim says he's going to call for all the backup and tells Baek to wait there. Then the car speeds off and leaves, leaving the blonde man behind, who just says he'll wait. One of the goons asks if they should get ready, but Baek tells them to stay away and not get involved. He then thinks that when the Seogwang guys arrive, the protagonist is done for anyway. Back in the warehouse, our hero approaches and asks if the conversation outside went well. Baek walks in, confirming he explained everything, and then tries to say goodbye to leave the place. But the assassin stops him from leaving and invites him to talk a little more. With that, the blonde man thinks he needs to buy time until the Seogwang reinforcements finally arrive. Then he remembers the young man's plan to take over Seoul's underworld, and the young man confirms it. The former boss asks if it's for money or power, and the assassin replies that he needs both. He then reveals that he wants to build a company big and strong enough to destroy the union. The ex-boss questions why he took his company, and the young man says it's the fastest way. At that exact moment, a car arrives at high speed outside the warehouse. Immediately after, several men armed with baseball bats get out of the vehicle. Manager Kim is at the front of a large group of goons, ready for a fight. They approach the warehouse door, ready to storm in and crash the party. Without ceremony, the manager kicks the door in and invades the place, shouting for the protagonist to come out. Baek looks at the young man with a victorious smile and asks what he's going to do now. With a scornful look, the blonde man thinks the new boss is completely finished. The collector says his message was clear and that this is the Seogwang organization's response. With a lot of hatred in his eyes, Manager Kim orders his men to take care of the assassin. The goons then rush towards our hero with their bats raised to attack, but the protagonist faces the crowd with a cold and fully focused look on the fight. Night falls over the warehouse as the chaos and brawling begin inside. The camera pans up, showing the warehouse roof as the fight unfolds violently. A dirty baseball bat is shown in close up after the battle ends. With that, our hero is standing alone amidst several fallen figures on the ground. Bake looks at the whole scene in complete shock, not believing the young man's strength. Very calmly, the assassin walks among the defeated goons on the floor. He approaches the fallen manager and reaffirms that the company is now entirely his. Then the young man stares at him and asks if the man in the blue suit understood him correctly. Trembling with fear, Manager Kim confirms that he perfectly understood the new situation. The protagonist stares at him with a serious look and starts talking to the man on the ground. Suddenly, one of the goons gets up behind him, ready for a surprise attack. The goon yells and charges with the bat to hit the assassin from behind with all his might. But Bake hears the sound of the hit and realizes something is very strange about that attack. He thinks the sound of a baseball bat hitting someone would be much nastier. The goon trembles in fear as the protagonist stopped the bat using only one hand. The young man looks back and comments that the speed of the attack makes no sense at all. Lying on the floor, Manager Kim desperately begs for the assassin to spare his life, but our hero presses the bat against his chin forcefully and tells him to be quiet. Fed up, the protagonist tells him to take his men and get out of there for good. Manager Kim fled with his men, and the protagonist left, saying he was tired. Bike narrates that the young man even saved his number on his phone and told him to keep him updated on everything. This makes the blonde man furious, thinking the assassin is acting like he's his boss. His goons arrive and ask if Manager Kim finally dealt with the crazy guy. But Bake says it was the other way around, and his men are astonished by the news. One of them suggests doing something, but the former owner of the company dares him to try. Bake then tells his men to take a vacation because things are about to get ugly. He explains that he knows Manager Kim will report everything to his superiors at Seogwang, and that his superior will try to take out not just the protagonist, but all of them together. Elsewhere, Manager Kim complains of pain and wonders if he dislocated his jaw. He introduces himself to his boss, who says he sent a written report, but he insists. Manager Bang Man Jai stares at him seriously and warns him that this better be worth it. With his face all bruised, the collector stammers a yes and prepares to explain. The scene cuts to a fancy restaurant where the two are sitting at a table. Kim explains that a debtor took over Platinum Finance and defeated everyone from Seogwang. Bang Man Ji says the situation is strange and offers to simplify it for him. He summarizes the story, saying that Platinum teamed up with someone to attack Seogwang. The Seogwang manager drinks his wine and says he doesn't care about the real situation. What matters is that they didn't receive the tribute, so someone needs to pay for it. With that, he orders a search warrant for the CEO of Platinum Finance right away. In the car, he turns on the radio to listen to something while trying to escape the city. The blonde man agrees with the radio host and thinks the world is being tough on him. He drives through the night as the radio talks about holding on because everything passes. The ex-boss gets annoyed and thinks he doesn't even know when this tide of bad luck will pass. The host asks what's needed in these moments, and Bake wonders about the answer. Suddenly, a bright light blinds him, and he has an epiphany while driving down the street. Just then, his car is cut off by another, and several men in black get out to surround him. One of the men calls his boss and reports that they managed to capture Bak Jum Tae. The scene returns to the warehouse, showing the dirty floor and the marks from the previous fight. Bak is back at the warehouse, all beat up, and regrets not hearing the end of it. Bang Man Ji is in front of him and says he's already made his decision, so there's no need to explain. The blonde man thinks the Seogwang manager is a scary guy and predicted his escape. He compares him to a bear that acts like a fox, and his superior says someone will pay for this. Bang Man Ji then gives back a choice and says he must bring the protagonist to him. The manager drinks his tea and warns him that how he does it is his problem. The warehouse ceiling is shown again as the ex-boss is left alone and desperate. With no other option, Bake picks up his phone and calls the protagonist as ordered. The assassin answers in bed and corrects him, saying he told him to report, not just contact. Desperate, the blonde man asks him to come to the company because something suddenly happened. Bake then gets nervous, thinking about how he's gonna trick the young man into the trap. The protagonist asks if he's been captured, and the ex-boss is shocked by the question. Lying in his apartment, the assassin says if it's a call for help, he just has to say so. With a confident smile, the young man says he'll go there immediately to save him. He hangs up the phone, and Bake stares at the device, not believing what he just heard. The Xiaoguang manager asks what happened, and the blonde man says the young man is coming to rescue him. He looks at his phone and wonders what kind of person that guy is. After all, elsewhere, the protagonist is on the street and thinks it's hard to get a cab there. In a nearby alley, the Xiaoguang goons are waiting, and one of them complains about having to see the young man. Another goon says that Bang Man, Jai, is skilled, and that he will take care of the protagonist. Kim explains that his boss has more skills than his current position requires, and that he lost his position in the company due to an internal political war. But Bang Man, Jai, didn't give up and continued to act according to his own beliefs. One of the goons asks what he learned from the manager, and he talks about loyalty. Kim corrects the goon and says he learned to let go of a rotten rope and look for another one. At that moment, the goon spots the protagonist arriving and alerts everyone there. He approaches on a glowing electric scooter, ready for whatever comes next. One of the men asks what they should do, and Kim prepares for the coming fight. With a knife in hand, he promises he won't go down so easily this time against the assassin. Our hero sets the scooter aside and gets ready to face Kim's men. Soon after, all the goons are on the ground, and he steps on the defeated manager's head. Our hero picks up the knife from the floor and prepares for the confrontation to come. He then slowly walks through the warehouse towards his real target. Manager Bang Man Ji watches him and wonders if that's the so-called Jin Jelian. He thinks the young man doesn't look that strong and then asks why he is there. The protagonist coldly replies that he came to rescue his employee. Bak is shocked to hear the assassin call him an employee like that. With that, the Xiaoguang manager concludes that the blonde man is in cahoots with the intruder. The ex-boss gets furious and thinks that crazy guy is making his situation worse. But our hero stares at him and thinks for him to stop acting like he's his boss. Then the young man tells Bak to stay quiet in a corner of the warehouse while he handles it. Scared, the blonde man obeys without question and goes to the corner as told. The Xiaoguang manager just watches the scene unfold with a serious look. He then smiles and states that his conclusion about the betrayal was correct. Bake panics because now the manager is sure he is a traitor. Without wasting time, the protagonist quickly advances towards his opponent. With a makeshift mask, he attacks with the knife in a swift and precise move. The reflection in the manager's glasses shows the assassin's determination in his attack. But the man from Xiaoguang dodges the blow with impressive speed and strikes back. Our hero is surprised by the speed and skill of his new adversary. Even so, he manages to defend himself and prepares to continue the intense fight. The protagonist lands a cut on the manager, who feels the impact of the blow instantly. He then continues with a series of rapid attacks that seem to hit the target. The assassin and the manager exchange blows in a high-speed battle in the warehouse. The man from Xiaoguang thinks it looks like he took a beating from the young man's attacks. But in reality, no blow truly hit him, they just grazed him. He compares him to a shield that can be scratched, but never truly broken. The protagonist then realizes he needs a different strategy to win. With that, he advances again, aiming for a specific point to cause real damage. The reflection in the manager's glasses shows the young man approaching for the final attack. The assassin delivers a precise blow as the man from Xiaoguang tries to defend himself. But the blade hits the manager's forehead, who feels the superficial cut on his skin. Our hero thinks that this part of the body bleeds a lot even with minor wounds. It's a wrestling tactic to simulate a serious injury and look more dramatic. The Xiaoguang manager notices the blood starting to run down and obstruct his vision. With impaired vision, it's difficult to control the distance and react to attacks. Because of this, he quickly backs away to try to wipe his face and regain focus. Even blinded, he attempts a desperate high kick, but the protagonist defends with the knife. With the impact of the blow, our hero's weapon ends up falling on the warehouse floor. Bake watches the scene and wonders how the fight will unfold without the blade. The manager then wipes his face and says that now the fight is really going to start. He adjusts his tie with a serious look and gets ready to fight with his bare hands. Now without the knife, our hero also prepares for a fist fight. The young man wastes no time and lunges forward with a powerful punch to attack his opponent. The man from Seogwang puts his glasses back on and comments on the young man's toy. He then compliments the protagonist, saying he fights well even without his knife. With a furious look, he says he will also fight seriously and advances with a punch. The blow lands squarely, and our hero is thrown far back by the force of the impact. Lying on the ground, he realizes that the manager's strength is not normal at all. The opponent gives no quarter and is already preparing to deliver another powerful attack. The man from Seogwang unleashes a shower of punches, and the young man defends with his arms. Bake watches in shock and thinks he's never seen the manager fight like that before. The blonde man thinks his power is incredible, but his movements are very reckless. He wonders if the manager got so annoyed with just one punch from the protagonist, and he thinks he lost his cool and is attacking like a wild, furious boar. With that, the two continue to exchange violent blows in the middle of the warehouse. Suddenly, a red glint appears in the manager's glasses, revealing a plan. Taking advantage of an opening, he lands a heavy blow to our hero's body. The young man doubles over in pain and wonders about that direct body shot. The force of the punch leaves him breathless and vulnerable to a next attack from the opponent. With that, our hero falls backward, looking completely defeated on the ground. On the ground, the manager says that people first judge only with their eyes, but he continues, saying that afterward, they see things as they really are. The ex-boss thinks it's impossible, and the manager realizes the young man tricked him on purpose. Suddenly, he remembers that Bak was there the whole time, just watching. With that, he walks over to the blonde man, saying that now he will pay for all of this. Then he tells the lone shark to drop the knife, because the game with it is over. Bake has a grim look on his face, completely tired of the situation. Suddenly, the man from Seogwang notices something moving behind him in the warehouse. The reflection in his glasses shows the assassin getting up for the final attack. Our hero then flies towards him with a powerful and super fast kick. The blow lands squarely on the manager, who is knocked out and thrown backward with full force. Bake approaches and offers the knife to the protagonist, who has become the new boss. The young man takes the weapon back and prepares to send a message to Seogwang. He says he hasn't had enough fun yet, as his bracelet glows. With impressive skill, the assassin begins to spin the knife in his hand. Then he attacks the fallen man with precise blows, but without hitting any vital spots. The Seogwang manager screams in pain from the wounds, but remains conscious. Our hero warns that if he doesn't go to a hospital, he'll end up in a bad way. He holds the blade close to the man to make his threat very clear. The assassin tells him to warn Seogwang not to pursue them anymore, but the manager warns that his company will hunt them to the end, no matter what. Bak hears everything and wonders why the young man said, "Cuss," instead of "me." The blonde man is completely lost, with no idea what to do now. Night falls over the warehouses, indicating that the long battle has finally ended. Bike then tosses the keys to the protagonist and suggests they should go get something to eat. Our hero says he needs to drive now, and the blonde man asks what he means. Shortly after, the two appear together on an electric scooter through the city. As the lone shark holds on, the assassin thinks about what they could eat. The scene then cuts to the sign of a diner that's open all night. Next, the two are eating burgers, and Bake looks very confused. Our hero asks if the lone shark isn't going to eat, and the blonde man replies that he will. But Bake questions him about what he's going to do, since Seogwang won't let this slide. The assassin eats his meal, and says he's going to take over everyone and be the best in the underworld. The lone shark asks if he's serious or if it's just talk from a self-help book. The ex-boss then remembers the young man defeating the Seogwang manager with ease. He recalls the man from the organization on the ground, in a lot of pain after the blow, and also seeing the assassin standing amidst all the goons he had defeated. At this, he thinks that being strong and building a strong company are different things. With that, Bake says he knows this well because he had his own business before. The blonde man remembers being taken from his home and says it's dangerous for the young man to go back there, but the protagonist says it's a waste of money and invites him to sleep at his apartment. The scene cuts to the assassin's apartment at night with the lights on. Once there, Bake comes out of the shower and wonders why he's doing all of this. Meanwhile, our hero is on his phone, and the loan shark regrets his involvement. Suddenly, the assassin announces that someone is coming, and the blonde man asks who it could be. The young man reveals that it's his business partner, and Bake wonders if there's another one like him. Elsewhere, a train crosses the city at night with lights in the background. Inside the car, we see several people returning home after a long day. Just then, a woman with dark hair is standing in the middle of the crowd, listening to music. With a tired look, she thinks she needs to quit her job and gets off the train. Arriving at her building, she presses the elevator button to go up to her floor. Right behind her, another woman with pink hair is also waiting to use the elevator. The dark-haired woman looks to the side and seems to notice something strange. She wonders who the pretty girl is, and if she also lives in the same building. At that moment, the pink-haired woman presses the button for the third floor, which the other finds strange. She realizes that's her floor too, and the elevator door opens. The elevator panel confirms that they have finally arrived on the third floor. Getting out of the elevator, the pink-haired girl knocks on the door of apartment 301. This leaves the neighbor shocked to see that the girl went to that specific apartment. Johnny opens the door, and the assassin asks what she brought, to which she replies it was beer. Johnny praises the country's convenience stores for their wide variety of beers. Hearing this, Bake wonders if that woman is the partner and finds her very beautiful. The young woman smiles with the drink in her hand and seems very confident and relaxed there. Then she opens the can and suggests they talk a bit while having a drink. Our hero thinks that she bought the same beer he used to drink in the United States. She introduces herself as Sawmi, and the blonde man finds it strange that she speaks so casually. At this, he turns bright red and wonders if the girl is the assassin's girlfriend. The protagonist and his partner are surprised by the loan shark's sudden question. She laughs and says it was hard enough to become his friend, so maybe dating would be easier. But the young man pushes her away and corrects her, saying they are just colleagues. With that, the partner asks why the assassin brought the ex-boss to the apartment. He explains that the blonde man was caught, so it's not safe for him to be alone out there. The girl says her new father is rich and adores her, so money isn't a problem. Bake hears that and wonders if he's the only one who found this whole story very strange. The protagonist tells her to find an office, and the loan shark sees they aren't a couple. After drinking quite a bit, the assassin says it's time to clean up and go to sleep. He offers the bed to the loan shark, since he's still a guest there. The young man tells Johnny to go home, and Bake thinks about how he stole his company but treats him well. He's confused because he can't understand what's going on in the assassin's mind. Suddenly, the girl throws herself onto the bed next to him, saying she'll sleep there too. She complains that she slept on the floor last time, so this time she'll stay in the bed too. With that, the three of them get settled, with the loan shark and the girl in the bed, and the assassin on the floor. Lying next to the young man's partner, the former loan shark boss gets very nervous. Meanwhile, the pink-haired girl sleeps peacefully without a care in the world. The blonde man lies with his eyes wide open, thinking it's impossible to sleep in that situation. The scene shows the three of them sleeping together in the protagonist's small apartment. Unable to get a wink of sleep, the loan shark gets up and decides to get out of bed for a bit. He goes to the kitchen and gets a bottle of water to drink and calm down. Looking to the side, he notices that the assassin is sleeping peacefully. With that, a dark thought emerges, and he wonders if Xiaoguang would forgive him. He decides they would and gets up to grab his clothes hanging on the wall. Bake picks up his knife and says he's not getting involved in that crazy guy's mess and is getting out of there. With the weapon in hand, he approaches the sleeping protagonist to end it all. At that moment, he remembers the phone call and the young man saying he was going to rescue him. The image of the assassin saying he went to save his employee flashes in his mind. The blonde man gets irritated and wonders why he's remembering that right now. Angrily, he throws the knife in the trash and gives up on his plan to betray the protagonist. Then he decides he'll play along with the young man's game for now and escape later. Back in bed, he tries to sleep and thinks he'll deal with the rest when the time comes. The lone shark finally falls asleep next to the protagonist's partner in the bed. The clock on the wall marks the passing of time as the three sleep in the room. The girl wakes up and looks at Bak, who is snoring loudly during the night. Meanwhile, our hero is also awake and thoughtful, lying in his spot. With a serious look, the assassin seems to be planning his next move. The scene changes to the front of a hospital with its lights on at night. Inside one of the rooms, the Siagwang manager is sitting on his bed, all bandaged up. He looks at the ceiling with a tired and very thoughtful expression. A flashback begins, showing Manager Choi entering his hospital room. He asks what Platinum Finance has to do with the report he sent. Manager Bang Man Ji says the company's revenue contributes almost nothing to Siagwang. With that, the man in the suit says the company's conclusion is to drop the case. He explains that even if they capture this giant, the profit isn't worth the effort. Bang Man Ji gets furious and says he can't let them get away with what they did. He yells that his men were hurt, and the company can't ignore that. Manager Choi sighs and seems not to care much about his colleague's situation. Bang Man Ji remembers that in the old days, the entire organization would seek revenge for an injured member, but Choi calls him old-fashioned, making him even more irritated with his comment. With a hateful look, the Siagwang manager seems to disagree with the decision. However, the man in the suit informs him that this is the company's final decision on the case. Hearing this, Bang Man Gi wonders if it's because of his old political faction. He remembers that Choi was an accountant before joining the company. With a smile, he wonders why more guys like that are in the company. Thoughtfully, he concludes that maybe he is too old-fashioned for the new Siagwang. The manager remembers the protagonist, saying he went to save his employee. With that, he admits it's been a long time since he's seen someone act so loyally. The scene cuts to the assassin's room with the window open and a blue sky. Our hero wakes up and realizes it's morning, and he needs to get up. Beside him in bed, the partner and the lone shark are still fast asleep. She is hugging Bak as she sleeps, and he seems to be snoring very loudly. Suddenly, the blonde man wakes up startled and doesn't understand what's happening. He screams in surprise upon seeing the pink-haired girl hugging him. With the noise, she also wakes up and complains about the noise he made. The assassin gets up and says since they're both awake, it's time for breakfast. This makes Bake curious to know what the young man will choose to eat. The scene shows the same diner from the day before, now in the sunlight. The three are eating, and the lone shark wonders if they're American for eating that. Suddenly, the young man's partner's cell phone starts ringing in the middle of the meal. She answers the call and confirms she will send the address to the person. The assassin asks who it was, and she says it was her personal driver. He is surprised, and the girl confirms he was the one who took her home. She explains that her new father got worried and sent the driver to pick her up. Bak eats his meal and wonders if the girl is taking this role seriously. He then thinks she's pretty, but seems to have her head a bit mixed up. Just then, the partner announces that her driver has arrived, and the lone shark looks over to see. His jaw drops when he sees a luxury car parked outside. The girl says goodbye and says she will look for an office and get in touch. She waves to the two, and the blonde man awkwardly replies for her to take care. The driver opens the car door, and she gets in as if she were a rich person. Bake then realizes that maybe she really is the youngest daughter of a wealthy family. Suddenly, the lone shark's cell phone starts ringing, interrupting his thoughts. He finds the unknown number strange, but answers the call to see who it is. On the other end of the line, the Siagwang manager says he needs to talk to him. This surprises Bak, and the voice on the other end asks if he's with the young man. He confirms the information but asks why the manager wants to know. Bang man. G says he is going to meet them and informs him it will be right at that moment. The scene cuts to the young man's partner's luxury car driving through the city. Inside the vehicle, she asks the driver if they are heading home, but the man replies that the company president went to work and asked her to come. She becomes curious to know how big her new father's company is. The car then parks in front of a huge, all-glass building. The pink-haired girl's jaw drops at the size of the building. The driver opens the door, and she gets out of the car, still impressed with the place. A man in a suit approaches and introduces himself as an employee of her brother. With a smile, she thinks about her annoying brother and how he's always keeping an eye on her. The man says he will escort her to the president's office, but she questions him. He explains that since she doesn't come often, her brother was worried about her. The girl understands that he was sent to watch her, not to actually help her. Impatiently, she tells the man to leave, leaving him completely confused. She says she already has someone to guide her and asks the driver if he knows the way. Her brother's employee gets annoyed and tells the driver not to meddle. This makes her furious, and she asks what he thinks he's doing there. Her eyes glow blue, and she glares at him with a look of pure rage. She scolds him for disrespecting her driver and herself in front of everyone. Scared, the man bows and apologizes for his inappropriate behavior. She dismisses him and says they can find the president's office on their own, but the employee insists on accompanying her, and she gets even more irritated. The girl then questions if her brother sent him to spy on their conversation. With a smile, she asks what he would tell his boss if she asked for a job. She warns that it's not going to happen and tells him to stop with the dirty tricks. The man is left speechless as she and the driver enter the building together. The employees gossip about the girl and wonder what the boss's daughter is doing there. Meanwhile, the two ride up the elevator in a very awkward silence. Suddenly, the driver comments that the young lady has changed a lot lately. She thinks that, of course, she's changed, because now she is literally another person. In his office, her brother is surprised by what he hears about his sister. The employee reports that the girl seemed like a completely different person. With that, the brother thinks she's been acting strange since that day. He wonders if she found out about the plan, but decides he just needs to finish the job. The brother hires a bigger organization because the last guy failed the job. At this point, he reveals that he managed to contact one of the biggest in the underworld. The connection was made through a construction company they use for beds. Her brother looks out the window and approves the plan to get rid of her for good. He then asks for the name of the new company, and the employee reveals it's Xiaoguang. With a serious look, the man repeats the organization's name to himself. Back at the diner, Black is startled to learn that the manager wants to see them. He asks why the manager sought them out, and the protagonist doesn't know the reason. The young man thinks it's safer for them to meet there than somewhere else. With a watchful eye, the assassin analyzes all the possibilities of the situation. He knows it could be a trap, but the public location limits their actions. With that, our hero tells the blonde man to call the manager to meet them right there. He is curious and not worried, as the manager's injury hasn't healed yet. Bake says he's afraid of an angry guy, but the young man tells him to give him the address. A little later, a wrapped burger is on the tray on the table. Manager Bang Man. Jai arrives and sits down at the table with the two young men. With his face all beat up, he glares at the two with a very serious look. The three look at each other, and the atmosphere in the diner becomes heavy and very strange. The protagonist offers a meal, and Bak doesn't know if he's being nice or just annoying him. The manager picks up the burger and notices that it's quite heavy in his hand. Without ceremony, the man from Xiaoguang takes a big bite of the meal. The two watch, and the lone shark notices that he eats very neatly. After the manager eats, he wipes his hands and gets ready to talk. He compliments the burger and says it has a lot of meat and little sauce, just how he likes it. The protagonist asks the reason for his visit, and the manager replies that he came to listen. He questions if the young man is really going to fight against Xiaoguang and what he plans to do. Tired of repeating himself, the assassin lets the lone shark explain the plan to the man. Bake reveals that the goal is to take down the two biggest organizations in the underworld. He points to the protagonist and introduces him as the new boss of the company. Upon hearing the plan, the Xiaoguang manager can't hold back his laughter. He laughs out loud and scoffs at the idea, finding it all ridiculous and impossible. But even though he finds it ridiculous, he admits that it somehow makes sense. He then asks if the young man needs more people to work in his company. The assassin surprises him and says that changing companies is no big deal these days. The man from Xiaoguang notices that the protagonist listens well to others, which surprises him. With a smile, the young man says the more, the merrier, as they have big plans. The manager then remembers that platinum finance brings in almost nothing for Xiaoguang. He explains that the company decided it's not worth spending resources on them. The lone shark is happy with the news and realizes he is free from the organization. With that, Bang Man Jai extends his hand and offers to join the new company. He says he believed in the young man, but Xiaoguang betrayed him, and now he wants out. The protagonist asks why he wants to join them and not another company. The man replies that he saw the assassin saving his employee and trusted him. With a smile, he thanks the young man for seeing him in a good light and accepts the invitation. Baek is shocked to see the two who fought until they were almost done for now working together. He realizes that Xiaoguang won't come after him anymore and thinks about running away. The Xiaoguang manager says goodbye, and the protagonist compliments the diner's burger. He explains that they don't have an office yet and asks the manager to wait. Baek asks why the man wants to join them after the company betrayed him. He worries about the idea of having one more person above him in the new company, but the blonde man soon remembers he plans to run away and that it doesn't really matter. Still, he asks the assassin if the manager will be his new boss. With a wave of his hand, the assassin explains that Baek joined first and was the boss. He concludes that the blonde man is above the manager in the new company's hierarchy. Suddenly, the ex-manager from Xiaoguang bows to Baek and calls him sir. The scene changes to the president's office with a blue sky outside. He scolds the girl for spending the night out and reminds her of his concern. She apologizes and says she was with a friend who is also her business partner. Her father is surprised and asks if she is starting her own business. The protagonist partner then asks for financial help to start the company. With a confident smile, the president agrees to help his daughter's venture, but he asks what kind of business she plans to start to know more. The girl thinks she can't tell the truth about taking over the underworld. She then makes up that her business is in information technology, and her father is interested. With that, she needs to think of something not connected to her father's group. She says she's going to make video games, and her father finds it strange, but thinks it's a good idea. The protagonist partner thinks she doesn't even play much, and just said that to throw him off. The president offers funding, and she is surprised by her father's offer. She thinks money is good, but receiving investment is a different story. She knows that a doting father like him wouldn't pressure her for profits or returns, but with her and the assassin's plans, receiving investment makes no sense. At this, the president offers an allowance instead of an investment, and she thanks him. He is happy that she knows money is a serious thing and that she won't fail. But in exchange for the money, he imposes a condition that makes her very curious. He complains that young people today don't wear suits and finds it old-fashioned. With that, he says that suits are like armor for business people. The girl finds the comment outdated and remembers billionaires in T-shirts. But her father explains that in the beginning, they also wore suits to ask for money. He says that nowadays, they dress like that to show the power they have. With a serious look, he tells her to wear the armor while spending his money. She agrees and thinks that in her past life, she wore suits and understands the logic. The president then suggests she ask her older sister for help with the office. The president then calls the older sister, asking her to come to his office. With that, the older sister arrives and greets the pink-haired girl with a smile on her face. Johnny realizes the sister didn't know about her arrival and concludes she's not with her brother. Their father then asks the older daughter about a vacant office in one of his buildings. The sister confirms she heard about an opening, and Johnny is surprised by so many buildings. The president explains that the girl wants to start a startup, and she says she will make video games. The older sister is surprised by the idea, but shows herself completely willing to help. He then asks the older daughter to keep an eye on the younger sister's new company. The father details what she should watch, and Johnny understands she will be closely monitored. With a battle cry, the sister supports her, but Johnny feels the pressure of being watched by her. Leaving the building, she thinks about how the whole situation has gotten even more complicated now. Outside, she calls the assassin to tell him the news and see if he can talk. The partner announces that she got an office and money for the business, making the young man happy. She tells him she had to say they would make video games, and the protagonist is very confused. The assassin says she doesn't even play games, and the partner confirms that's the big problem now. With that, she informs him that she needs to find someone to make the games, leaving him shocked. Our hero then asks where they are going to find someone to make a game out of nowhere. She explains that things just happened, but they need the money for the company. So, the two agree to talk about the details when they meet later. After hanging up the phone, the young man sighs and thinks about how everything is happening so fast. The loan shark then says goodbye to leave, and the protagonist asks where he's going. The blonde man explains that since Sagwang isn't after them anymore, he can go back home. The assassin agrees with his logic and says he will contact him later. The ex-boss agrees, but thinks he will cut ties and escape from that mess. With that, he hails a cab on the street and decides to go to his old office first. Inside the car, the loan shark thinks that his life is finally getting back to normal. He celebrates the return of his company, and the driver announces they have arrived at the location. But upon looking at his office, the blonde man is completely shocked by the scene. Outside, he sees that his warehouse has been completely burned down and doesn't understand anything. Furious, he realizes that Xiaodwang broke their promise and set his office on fire. Amidst the rebel, he notices the burned safe, but is relieved he kept the money elsewhere. But he laments that his entire company was turned to ashes by the rival organization. At this, he decides he can build a new office, and then calls his employees first. The employee apologizes and says he can't come back to the company, leaving the boss shocked. He then calls the other employees, but the response from all of them was the same, and they just expressed regret. Without exception, all his former employees say they can't come back and hang up. Another employee apologizes, and the blonde man begs him not to hang up the phone. Desperate, he asks them to at least explain the reason for that sudden decision. On the other end of the line, the man reveals that Xiaoguang recruited everyone for their headquarters. He continues and explains that the organization convinced them not to work at Platinum Finance anymore. The loan shark then realizes that Xiaoguang's plan was to suffocate his company until it went bankrupt. The employee advises him to find something else to do and says goodbye with thanks. The call ends, and the blonde man is left alone amidst the rebel, cursing the situation. He reflects that it's hard to do business in that territory without Xiaoguang's support. As the sun sets, he thinks that losing his employees was worse than the burned building. Sitting on the ground, he laments that not a single person stayed by his side in the end. Suddenly his cell phone rings, and on the screen the protagonist's name appears, calling him. The lone shark answers, and our hero asks where he is so they can have dinner together. At this, the blonde man thinks the young man must not have many friends either to call him like that. The assassin then suggests that instead of burgers, they should have a drink. The scene then cuts to a Japanese-style bar where the two will meet. Already there, the former loan shark boss drinks a large glass of beer in one go. The two eat and drink together, and the blonde man seems much more relieved now. He then takes the opportunity to eat some skewers that were on the table. After eating, the blonde man lets out a sigh of satisfaction with his mouth full. The protagonist also drinks, and the loan shark wonders if it's really the young man's fault. He concludes that it's his own fault, because his employees trusted Xiaoguang more. The assassin calls him boss and asks why he's so thoughtful all of a sudden. The loan shark then says, there's nothing left of the company the young man forcibly acquired. He tells him he went to the office and found it burned down by Sogwang, leaving the young man surprised. The blonde man also says that all the employees fled, and now there's nothing left. But our hero says that's not true, and that the loan shark still has him. With that, the two fall silent at the bar table while they have a drink. Suddenly, the former loan shark boss asks what that is, and the young man doesn't understand. He then explains that he simply doesn't get it, because they barely know each other for real. A memory emerges, showing the assassin beating up the blonde man in the warehouse. Right after, he remembers the young man, saying he would take over his company from then on. The loan shark says the protagonist stole his company, but saved him when he was caught. With that, he thanks the young man, but still seems to have many doubts in his mind. Then he leans in and asks if they are close enough for all of this. Our hero then begins to explain that in his past life, he lived alone. He didn't know how to get close to people and always pushed away anyone who tried. But one guy ended up becoming the only person close to a friend he ever had. He wasn't a real friend, but he acted like one all the time by his side. That's why he says this is the only way he knows how to form bonds with someone. The blonde man wonders if the young man really wants to be so close as to risk his life. He drinks his beer and thinks of the assassin, saying everything would be okay with him there. With that, he lowers his head to the table and thinks this conversation was very cheesy. But after losing everything, it hit him in a very different and emotional way. So he asks if he can call him bro, but the young man says to call him boss. With that, the loan shark raises his glass and says they should indeed get very close. Our hero just smiles slightly at the new employee's emotional reaction. Then the two toast with their beers, sealing the new partnership between them. The loan shark then asks about the video game conversation he overheard on the phone. The assassin explains that his partner's father offered to finance their business. But when the father asked what kind of business, she made up that they would make video games. He concludes that now they need to make a real game to receive the money. The loan shark thinks it's crazy and wonders where they will find a developer. But suddenly, he says that he actually knows someone who can make the game. The scene then cuts to a modern building with the SG Tower logo on the facade. Bang Man Gi walks down a hallway and goes to the Xiaoguang director's office. Director Zhou Yang Jiu greets him and asks what brings him to his office. This is the real power behind Xiaoguang, and Manager Choi is also his subordinate. The man in the suit then comments to his superior that the decision was old-fashioned, but Zhou is the only one with the power to make such decisions, and who has the president's support. With that, he hands his resignation letter to the director, who is surprised. Bang Man asks if that wasn't what he wanted, and the director says it was a misunderstanding. With a fake smile, he asks why he would want someone like him out of the company. He then remembers the important role the manager played in the founding of Xiaoguang. The manager says that since the building is ready, they no longer need him for construction, and that the only other time he would be needed would be for a demolition. The director then asks if he is thinking of joining the rival organization, but the manager replies that they would never accept him after everything he has done. He accuses him of pretending not to know and of having clipped his wings within the company. With that, the manager accuses him of having expelled and ruined the life of the former director Zhang. But the director denies it and says that Zhang passed away in an accident and left on his own accord. The man from Xiaoguang says he is very good at pretending and that he is shameless. Impatiently, he says he's leaving, and the director calls out to him, but he ignores it and leaves. The door slams shut, and the director is left alone, thinking about the situation. He then sighs and says he didn't expect that stubborn bear to leave just like that. The director looks at the letter and wonders what the manager plans to do now. In the hallway, the man in the suit composes himself and seems much more determined. Manager Choi finds him and asks why he is leaving the director's office. He warns him that going to the director won't change the company's decision at all. Bang Man G glares at him and says things in the company don't work like they used to. With a hateful look, the man walks towards him, ready for a confrontation. Choi is surprised and tries to understand what is happening with his colleague. Without a second thought, the manager delivers a powerful punch to his face. With the impact of the blow, the man in the suit is thrown backward with full force. He falls to the hallway floor, completely knocked out and utterly confused. With a face full of rage, Choi yells and asks what the heck he thinks he's doing. With that, he tries to stop him from continuing, but the manager is not intimidated by the threat. Mercilessly, he steps on the fallen man, who screams in pain from the unexpected attack. The fallen man calls him crazy, but Bang Man lifts him up by the collar with force. Choi threatens him, saying he will report him to the board for acting like a gangster there, but the manager glares at him and asks what he thinks happens to those who act like that on the outside. He then warns that since he resigned, company policy has nothing to do with him anymore. With a hateful look, he warns the man in the suit to never open his mouth near him again. He threatens him, saying that if he sees him again, he will simply end his life. The scene cuts to a coffee shop where the protagonist, his partner, and the lone shark meet. The girl asks the blonde man how he knows the person who can make the game for them. The lone shark explains that he's just a guy who borrowed money from him and nothing more. He continues, saying the person worked at a famous company, but left to open his own studio. But the business didn't work out because they were betrayed by an employee, and the game wasn't released. To keep the company afloat, they took out a loan, but ended up going bankrupt and are now paying interest. With that, the assassin asks the blonde man to sell that person's debt to him. Bake agrees, and the partner finds his detached attitude towards his old company strange. He then says he will trust the boss and follow his orders from now on. The pink-haired girl asks how he managed to make the lone shark so loyal. The protagonist explains that the plan is to buy the debt and have the guy make a game for them. A little later, they meet with the former developer, Lee Min-sang. The young man thinks it's a prank, and the young man's partner says it's a serious offer. She then explains they will pay a salary and that he just needs to worry about creating. Most importantly, the debt will be forgiven once the game is finally ready. With that, she warns him that if he makes a half-hearted game, the debt won't be forgiven. The young man is offended and assures her he would never make a game half-heartedly in his life. Our hero remains silent, observing and evaluating the developer. With the proposal accepted, he then asks what the concept of the game they want is. The protagonist surprises him and tells him to make the game he always wanted to create. The scene cuts to the office of the young man's partner's brother, who seems very annoyed. With a determined look, the developer promises he will finish the project right. He bows in gratitude and says he is very thankful for this new opportunity. The protagonist's partner then wonders if the young man is really trying that hard. At this, she wonders if he was always this type of person or if he has changed a lot. The girl invites the young man to see the new office, and he agrees to go along. The young man is a bit surprised, but accepts the invitation and goes with them right away. As they walk, he thinks the offer seems too good to be true. The proposal is exactly the dream he had of being able to create without worries. He remembers people say to be careful of those who say what we want to hear, and that in his case, the people behind the offer are loan sharks, and it could be a scam. The protagonist's partner announces they have arrived, and the young man's jaw drops. They are in front of a huge building, and he can't believe what he sees. The young man wonders if they just pointed to a random building to trick him. With an invitation from the girl, everyone enters the building and goes to the new office. Inside, they find a modern and fully equipped office to work in. The partner asks if it's enough, and the young man says it's more than perfect. He asks how they arranged everything so quickly, and the protagonist explains. The young man says that the previous tenant bought everything, and they bought the whole package. With everything ready, the loan shark says he's going to the restroom, and the developer decides to go too. The sign on the restroom door indicates that the area is reserved for men. In the restroom, the blonde man comments that he drank too much at breakfast, hence the urgency. The young man asks if he's closing the deal, and he says his debt now belongs to the girl. He washes his hands and still can't believe the proposal isn't a scam. The former loan shark boss dries his hands And the young man says everything seems too good. With a smile, he says he knows the developer has nothing to lose. He wrings out the paper towel and says if he had anything, he would have already taken it from him. With that, the young man seems to finally be convinced that the offer is real. The blonde man tells him to get used to incredible things if he's going to work with them. Back in the office, the partner asks the young man if he's okay with this. She worries about the costs of hiring a team to develop the game. She remembers that in exchange for the whole show, her father is investing billions. Hearing this, the protagonist comments that her new father must really like her a lot. The girl agrees and says she could just forget everything and live like a rich person. But she remembers the scoundrels who eliminated them and gives up on the idea right away. With a smile, the young man thanks her for not running away and leaving him alone. He then says that now that the office is ready, it's time to make a call. The scene cuts to the Seogwang director's office, where he is laughing loudly with Choi. The man in the suit asks if it's okay to let the manager get away like that. But the director says he resigned, and there's nothing more he can do. The subordinate then reminds him that the boss himself said not to act like gangsters. With a hateful look, he says the manager might do something crazy against them. The director asks what he wants to do, and the man suggests they eliminate the problem. With a mocking smile, the boss calls him a gangster for suggesting such a thing. He explains that the manager is very strong, and they would need many men, and that it's not worth spending resources on him, and it could harm his reputation. Choi keeps insisting, but the director doesn't seem to care about the situation. He mentions that the manager threatened him, and the director says he would be nervous too. But with a thoughtful look, the boss says there might be a way to solve it. In a basement at the Seogwang headquarters, the former employees of Platinum Finance are gathered. They complain about being stuck there, and one of them says something is very wrong. Another employee says to wait, because they were promised they would get new tasks. Manager Choi walks down a hallway and seems to be heading towards the basement. In his office, the director thinks that if they catch the manager, great, and if not, that's fine too. He turns and looks at the basement door where the men are locked up. The boss says they were going to get rid of those people anyway. Choi enters the room and announces they have received a new and important task. He hands a black folder to one of the men, who is surprised by what he sees. The manager orders them to finish the job by the end of the day and report to him. With the order given, he leaves the room, and the door closes behind him with a thud. One of the men opens the folder and is shocked by what he sees inside the document. He recognizes the target and remembers that his old boss was very afraid of that guy. The other men comment on the boss's fear and wonder how they are going to capture him. One of them gets nervous about the mission, but the other says they have to do it. He encourages them by saying if they succeed, they could get a promotion in the company. With that, everyone gets excited about the idea of getting out of the basement and defeating the manager. Night falls over the city, and the building lights begin to turn on. In his apartment, the manager is watching television and seems very relaxed. He laughs at a show and seems unconcerned about the threats he received. But the latter causes him pain, and he complains that he pushed himself too hard before healing. Suddenly, his cell phone starts ringing, and he answers the call without looking. He says he's at home and needs some time to recover fully. The person on the other end of the line says they are on their way, and he gives the address. He opens the fridge and thinks he has nothing to serve the visitor who is arriving. With that, he decides to go out to buy beer and heads to the convenience store. From a car, the men from Seogwang watch him leave and prepare for the attack. They all get out of the vehicle, armed and ready to ambush the manager on the street. He enters the store, and the men position themselves to catch him by surprise. The group leader explains that a direct fight won't work against him. He details the plan to ambush him when he leaves the store and attack him all together. One of the men asks who will carry out the ambush, and everyone falls silent. Suddenly, one of them volunteers to make the first attack and lead the group. Inside the store, the manager takes advantage of a sale and buys 4 cans of beer. He leaves the store with his purchases and the men prepare for the ambush. The chosen man gets into position and waits for the right moment to attack the target. With a knife in hand, he charges towards the manager, who notices the attack. But before he could react, the man attacks him with a swift and precise blow. The knife hits the manager, who feels the impact of the blow and is surprised by the attack. With the target wounded, the attacker falls to the ground, and the manager glares at him with a serious look. He picks up the knife from the ground and wonders what kind of guy that was after all. With that, he remembers having seen him before, but can't recall from where. With the knife in his hand, the manager looks around and prepares for the fight. He glares at the men and wonders if they are with the guy who attacked him. The men get scared and wonder what they should do now that they've been seen. They then decide they have nothing to lose and charge at the manager. With a cold and focused look, he prepares to face the crowd of men. In the blink of an eye, he lunges forward and attacks the first man with a precise blow. The other men scream in pain from their injuries, and the fight truly begins. Without letting up, he continues the sequence of attacks and takes down another enemy. He finishes off the last man with a powerful kick, sending him flying. The manager asks who sent them, and the men tremble in fear on the ground. They wonder how he can be so strong, even while injured from the fight. One of them screams in pain, and the manager realizes his wound is opening up. Another man takes advantage of the opening and charges to attack him with a knife from behind. He feels the blow and realizes his condition has left him vulnerable to attacks. One of the men yells to the others that he's bleeding and they should attack. With that, the others get excited and advance together on the wounded manager. He prepares to fight but knows the situation is very complicated. The men surround him, and he asks them to wait a bit, but they don't listen. One of the goons is confused, but the leader yells for them not to stop the attack. Suddenly, the protagonist appears on his electric scooter and stops the fight. The men are shocked and wonder why that guy showed up again. He gets off the scooter and approaches the commotion with a very serious look. The manager asks how he knew where to find him, and he explains that he used the map. He continues, explaining that the street the manager lives on is the same one he took. Our hero then faces the men and recognizes that they are from Platinum Finance. He then concludes that it was Xiaoguang who sent them and that they are traitors. The men panic and realize they have no way of winning against the two of them together. With no other option, one of them charges at the protagonist in a desperate attack, but the young man dodges with ease and knocks him down with a single blow to the face. With that, he prepares to finish off all the traitors who are there. With that, he glares at the men with a look of hatred and prepares for the worst. The last two remaining men panic and don't know what to do now. With a threatening look, the assassin tells them to take their men and disappear. A little later, in the manager's apartment, he tends to his wounds. He complains about the teddy bear bandage he had to buy at the convenience store. Our hero explains it was the only one they had, and the manager accepts his fate. He drinks his beer and asks the young man what brought him there. After all, the protagonist explains that he came to make the partnership between them official. With that, he extends his hand and invites the manager to work together. Bangman G shakes his hand and accepts the proposal to join the new company. He explains that things with Xiaoguang had been strange for a long time. The company was formed by the union of several organizations, and his was kicked out. He stayed because he believed in the company, but it showed its true colors. With that, he reveals that the two biggest organizations were once one in the past. The manager reveals that a long time ago, one man conquered the entire underworld. He unified all the gangs and built a crime empire in the city, but he was good at conquering, not at ruling, and was betrayed by his men. The empire then split in two, and thus Xiaoguang and Dongshan were born. Hearing this, the young man says that if someone has already done it, he can do it too. But the manager reminds him that the story ended with the empire falling apart in the end. The protagonist replies that then he simply won't stop conquering. The man from Xiaoguang is surprised and thinks that maybe the young man can actually do it. He then drinks his beer and seems more confident in the assassin's plan. The scene cuts to the Xiaoguang director's office, where he is furious with Choi. The men who were defeated are all injured, and the manager complains. He calls them weak and gets angry that they couldn't defeat a single man. But the men think he's not a real gangster and get irritated with him. They wonder why he's freaking out at them and not at the director. With a hateful look, Choi scratches his head and wonders if the manager found out everything. He wonders if Bang Man Ji knows that he was the one who sent the men after him. With a look of hatred, he asks the men if they told him that he sent them. One of them remains silent, but a flashback shows they confirmed the information. The protagonist asks if it was Choi who sent them, and the man agrees right away. But the goon denies having said that, leaving the manager completely confused. He explains that they didn't say who sent them, and Choi is relieved by the news. He warns them that they lost their chance for a promotion and leaves the room. With the door closed, one of the men curses the manager, and another calms him down. He says that Choi is still one of the director's dogs, and they can't confront him. One of them asks why he didn't mention that the protagonist helped the manager. The man explains that the young man is still with the lone shark and that he is being manipulated. He didn't want to get in the way of his old boss, so he remains silent about the help. With that, the men wonder what they are planning to do together now. In the director's office, he says the manager is like a kite with a cut string. He doesn't believe he can do anything, and manager Choi agrees with him. The director wonders why the manager hates him so much, and Choi makes a joke about it. With a smile, he tells the director to treat him well if he wants to stay alive in the company. He then gives the manager a new job and remembers the request they received. In exchange for a project, they need to eliminate someone, and now they know who it is. He hands over the protagonist's partner's photo, and the manager is surprised. The director explains that the request came from her brother and that he's an important guy. He scoffs at the situation and says these rich families are worse than gangsters. With that, he tells Choi to pick 2 men and take care of the girl as quickly as possible. Leaving the room, the manager looks at the photo and wonders if he really needs 2 men. The protagonist's partner says they need a name for the new company. They will need the name for registration and to report to the president. The young man suggests they use something simple, like their names or initials. He thinks of initials and suggests the company name BB Company. The partner asks what it means, and he reveals it stands for Bad Business. She laughs and says she likes the name, and that they can come up with a better meaning later. The scene cuts to the room of the young man's partner's brother, who seems very annoyed. With a confident smile, he thinks about the name of the new company they created, BB Company. Just then, the president asks the girl what her new company's name means. She then makes up that the name means brave and bold, and her father likes the idea. With that, the president tells her to live up to that name, and she agrees excitedly. Leaving the room, she thinks about how hard it is to make a living and get what you want in the world. Suddenly, her cell phone starts ringing in her pocket, and she takes it out to answer the call. The pink-haired girl answers the call and seems very confident while speaking to the person. On the other end of the line, her driver says he came down early to prepare her car, but he warns that someone slashed the tires and it will take a while to fix. Hearing this, she is shocked and realizes someone did that to her car on purpose. She then dismisses the driver and says she will go home alone after work. Night falls over the city, and she calmly walks through the busy streets. Suddenly, the girl looks back and realizes she already knew something like this would happen. With a serious look, she confirms her suspicion that someone is following her through the streets. She remembers that damaging the car is a basic tactic to force the target out, and that it works well when the driver is also the person's bodyguard. This way, they separate the two and make the task of eliminating the target much easier. So she enters a coffee shop and grabs a large cup that she thinks is perfect for her plan. With a smile, the girl asks them to fill the thermal cup with very hot coffee. With the drink in hand, she continues on her way, and the men follow her closely. She then turns into a dark alley, and one of the men notices her quick movement. With that, the man with glasses runs after her so as not to lose sight of her in the area. He seems very determined to finish the job and not let her escape under any circumstances. but the girl was already waiting and invites him to have a coffee with her. Without wasting time, she throws the hot coffee directly in the man's face with great force. He screams in pain from the surprise attack and falls to the ground with his face burned. The girl advances, and the man on the ground is surprised, not understanding what just happened. With her eyes glowing, she reveals the meaning of BB, which is bloodbath. The second man is shocked by the scene, and the girl holds the blood-stained cup. Angrily, the other goon pulls out a knife and prepares to attack the woman in the alley. She warns him to think carefully before doing anything stupid in that alley. But the man doesn't listen and charges with the knife in a desperate attack against her. With a smile, the girl calls him a fool for trying something so predictable and useless. The scene cuts to the office of Executive Director Han Ju-seok, her brother. An employee reports that Seogwon called and that they will make their move today. Hearing this, the girl's brother is satisfied with the news he just received. He smiles and thinks he will finally get rid of his sister from that house for good. Back in the alley, the man attacks with the knife in a swift and very strong move, but the protagonist's partner dodges the blow with impressive agility. This leaves the goon shocked, unable to believe the woman's speed. Without giving him time to react, the girl lands a powerful punch to his stomach. With both of them on the ground, she wonders if all the assassins in the country are this weak. She then kicks one of them in the face to wake him up and get some information. With the man awake, she demands to know who hired him and which organization he's from. The girl steps on his hand with force and says it wasn't a question for him to ignore. The man screams in pain from the stomp and feels the weight of her boot on his injured hand. With that, she grabs him and tells him to answer her question once and for all. Afraid of getting hit again, he yells and begs her to wait because he'll talk. He then reveals that he is from Seogwon, but that he doesn't know who the client for the job is. The young man's partner thinks about the organization's name, and the goon says he was just following orders. The scene then cuts to the family's mansion, all lit up at night. Her brother walks down the hallway, looking very tired but also relieved. Suddenly, he is startled to see his sister standing there waiting for him at the house. Startled, he stammers and can't believe she is still alive there. She sips her drink and asks why he is so surprised to see her at the mansion. The man is left speechless and just sighs in frustration at the unexpected situation. Elsewhere, the director of Seogwon gets angry upon learning that his 2 men failed. He asks manager Choi if that makes any sense, and he denies it right away. With a hateful look, the boss drinks his whiskey and seems unable to believe the news. He then stands up furiously and throws his glass on the table, breaking everything around him. The director yells at Choi and complains about the scolding he received from the HK group for the failure. He continues the lecture, saying if gangsters don't do their job, who can you trust? With that, the boss says he now understands why people hate manager Choi. He questions why he sent idiots, and Choi says they were good men. Tired, the director drinks his whiskey and says he will choose the best, Blade, in the company. A few days pass, and the dust seems to have settled for a brief moment. In his apartment, our hero gets ready and puts on a suit to go out. He looks at himself in the mirror and thinks it's strange to wear a suit, as he used to wear one every day. The young man remembers that in his past life, he wore a custom-made suit from New York. But the suit he has now was bought at a random store in front of the station. Leaving his house, he runs into his neighbor, who is surprised to see him suddenly. The elevator panel shows that they are both on the 3rd floor of the building. In the elevator, she thinks that he always wore the same clothes, and now he's in a suit. Even so, the neighbor admits to herself that he looks very good in a suit. A bit shyly, the two greet each other somewhat awkwardly there. The girl asks if he's going to work, and he confirms that he started a company. The assassin says goodbye and wishes her a good day, but she seems very distracted. The neighbor's jaw drops, and she wonders if she heard right about the company. The scene then cuts to the sign of the protagonist's new company, BB Company. In the office, the partner compliments the young man's look, saying he looks great. With that, she hands him a company ID badge to wear in the office. The loan shark is also in a suit and complains that the style doesn't suit him, but the girl compliments him and says the suit looks much better on him than she expected. The developer says it's the first time he's worn a suit to work on games. Looking at the ID badge, he realizes he has been appointed as the development team leader. This leaves the loan shark confused, and he asks what his position is in the new company. The partner then introduces the protagonist as CEO Jin Jaein. Next, she introduces herself as Vice President Han Salmi. The loan shark is then introduced as the new Executive Director Baekjum Tae. And finally, the former manager of Seogwang is introduced as Director Bang Man Jai. With that, the loan shark realizes his position is higher than the manager's and feels good. He laughs and says the two of them will work hard together in their new company. The ex-manager from Seogwang finds it funny how they sound like a company's leadership. Our hero then asks if the manager has any ideas for them to build the company. With that, the assassin tells the developer to start working, and he agrees right away. In a meeting room, the protagonist asks the manager to share his ideas. The man with glasses confirms and reveals that their first target will be Seogwang itself. He explains that their headquarters is where the organization's money and power are. Within the company's territory, there are many small and large organizations like Platinum, but most are not loyal to Seogwang and are only seen as a source of taxes. The blonde man confirms the information and gets annoyed remembering how they treated him. The manager reveals that the plan is to use this resentment and take over the organizations one by one. They will form a new organization within Seogwang's territory to fight against it, and as the new organization grows, others will join their banner. With that, they will finally have a real body and the power to fight on equal terms. Our hero agrees with the plan and says it's a great strategy to start. The partner then asks what the first target will be, and the manager offers to choose. He says he knows the roster by heart and can pick the perfect target for them. The loan shark gets annoyed seeing that the manager is already taking the lead in the company. He thinks his title is higher, but he'll soon end up losing his position to the manager. Meanwhile, the developer starts organizing his game plans on the computer. He wonders what kind of people they are and what they want with a company. The young man thinks none of them seem like the type to work with games or technology. He doesn't feel like the company is real and wonders why they hired him to make a game. Suddenly, the young man's partner appears and asks how the work on the game is going. She tells him not to hesitate to ask for anything he needs for the project. With that, the young man says the most important thing right now is to hire more people. He explains that he's the only one on the development team and needs help with the game. The girl informs him that they can only hire a few people and that the main business isn't games. The developer thinks it was already good enough to have his debt forgiven and shouldn't ask for more. He asks why she is doing this, and she remains silent for a moment. With a serious look, she thinks about the best way to explain her plans to the young man. She then reveals that the company's main business is buying and absorbing other companies, and that they wanted creative people to build something with the money from that business. With a smile, she thinks the young man is easy to motivate, and he promises to do his best. Elsewhere, the loan shark asks the manager when he came up with that plan. He explains that he thought of it when he was in charge of the external organizations. To guard against threats, he simulated various scenarios and chose the most realistic one. The blonde man then asks what the vice president does, and if she and the young man are dating. The manager denies the dating part but confirms that the two seem to be very close. The blonde man says the protagonist is not easy to understand, and the manager agrees with him. With that, he says he has given up on understanding and will just go with the flow. The manager thinks about the idea and suddenly has an epiphany on how to execute the plan. With a determined look, he realizes exactly what they need to do now. Elsewhere, the assassin asks if it was Seogwang that sent the hitman. The partner confirms and says it was her stepbrother who hired the organization, but the girl warns him not to get complacent, as the situation could become dangerous. With a serious look, he warns her that the next one they send could be dangerous. The scene then cuts to a pier with waves crashing against the rocks. A man is fishing and says he left the hotel to get some fresh air. His bodyguards watch him, and he tells them not to worry about his safety, with several men in suits protecting him. He seems to be someone very important. On the phone, he says he will testify in court and tells them not to worry. From a distance, a person with long hair observes the man and his bodyguards. He seems to be analyzing the situation and planning his next move. With a bag on his back, he approaches the pier and is stopped by the security guards. With a cold look, the long-haired man stares at the bodyguards without saying a word. He asks why he can't enter, and the security guards tell him to leave the area. The men tell him to fish somewhere else, and he agrees with their idea. But suddenly, he throws his bag on the ground and prepares for what's coming. The security guards tell him to move further away, but he gets ready to attack. With a knife in hand, he quickly advances towards the men in suits. In the blink of an eye, he gets closer, and the security guards are shocked by his speed. They draw their weapons to fight back, but the long-haired man is faster. With precise movements, he hits the two men with his knife, and they scream in pain. The other security guards start shooting to try to stop the mysterious intruder, but he dodges the bullets with impressive agility and continues his attack. With swift movements, he closes in and prepares for the next blow. The men are shocked and can't believe the assassin's speed. Lying on the ground, the security guards don't understand what happened so quickly. One of the men gets angry and calls him a scoundrel, but he is not intimidated by the threat. Without giving him time to react, the assassin hits him with a powerful kick to the face. With the man on the ground, he picks up his weapon and prepares for the rest of the fight. The target yells for the other security guards to get the intruder, and they shoot again. The long-haired man returns fire and hits the men with precision. He dodges the shots and wonders how the assassin can be so fast. Unfazed, he continues shooting and hits another one of the security guards. With the men falling, he approaches the target to finish the job. The man with glasses screams in fear and tries to run, but it's too late for him. The assassin shoots, and the target falls to the ground, lifeless from a clean shot. He then picks up the man's whiskey bottle and examines it with a cold look. With a smile, he compliments the drink and seems satisfied with the job done. With the men on the ground, he announces that the job is done and asks for a clean-up. He then approaches the edge and says he already has another job waiting for him. With his phone in hand, he seems to be waiting for the details of the next mission. Opening his phone, he sees the photo of his new target and finds her very beautiful. Back at the BB Company office, the group plans their next step and thinks about setting a trend. The manager with glasses confirms the idea of creating a new trend in the underworld. He explains that he thought about taking down one of the larger and more reputable companies first. But his opinion is that taking down several small companies in a short time will have a bigger impact. With a smile, he says that by looking like an unstoppable force, others will join without a fight. At this point, the protagonist asks about what scale of company they are talking about. The blonde guy and the boss look surprised and a little confused by the suggestion. Then his partner asks how many companies and in how much time they intend to take them down. The protagonist is silent for a moment, appearing to carefully analyze the plan. He then raises the stakes and says it will be 5 companies in 1 month to move fast. The man with glasses is shocked and asks if he heard the 1-week deadline right. With confidence, the agent says they will start on Monday and finish by Friday. The manager is speechless, his eyes wide with surprise at the new goal. Startled, the blonde guy asks if he is serious about 1 organization a day. The young man then explains that it has to be this way to look like an unstoppable trend. Looking at the team, he questions if they can really do this together. The lone shark says he knows the boss and Director Bang are incredibly strong, and continues by saying that he himself does not lack confidence in his abilities. At this, the partner interrupts and asks why she is being left out of the count. The blonde guy and the manager are left speechless by the girl's unexpected question. She then flexes her arm and says that if they are curious, they can see for themselves next week. Night falls over the city, and they decide to call it a day. In the elevator, he invites her to dinner, but she declines because she is going to eat with her family. Later, the city traffic is heavy with several cars on the streets. Inside the car, the girl thinks about how surprised her colleagues, or that she could fight. At that moment, the driver calls her, saying he has something important to tell her. He reveals that he will no longer be able to serve her because he was transferred to another executive. With a smile, she realizes that her brother is openly preparing to make a move. The scene cuts to the family mansion, all lit up at night. In the dining room, the family is gathered for a silent meal. The father asks how Somi is doing, and her brother answers that business is going well. With a malicious smile, he questions what kind of business she is doing and provokes her, telling her to stop playing house with their father's money. The brother is left speechless and surprised by her sharp reply. She then turns to their father and asks if the company's money isn't his anyway. The girl accuses her brother of trying to save money by firing her personal driver. He defends himself, saying she would be seen as a spoiled rich girl using their father's money. With an ironic smile, she asks if he did that because he was worried about her. She continues eating with a satisfied smile, leaving her brother without an answer. While they eat, he thinks that she can act out all she wants because she will be gone in 1 week. Elsewhere, the protagonist arrives home holding a shopping bag. Walking down the street, he notices something strange happening up ahead. He then sees a man bothering his neighbor in front of the building. The manager insists and holds her inappropriately, asking to come inside. The agent approaches and asks if everything is okay with the young woman. The neighbor hesitates to answer, fearing the manager might cause trouble for her. The man with glasses angrily asks what his relationship is with the girl. Calmly, the young man says he is just the neighbor, and the manager tells him to get lost. The agent nods and says that is fine then. He turns to leave, and the manager calls him a jerk from behind. Hearing the insult, the young man stops walking and slowly turns his head. He then turns completely around and stares at the man, who does not understand. The young man says that by calling him that, this has now become his problem. With a threatening look, he warns the manager to walk away so he does not get into trouble. Scared, the man runs away, and the neighbor thanks him for the help. Walking together, he introduces himself as Jin Jae Hyeon and she is Ba Ji Soo. Inside the elevator, the agent presses the button for the 3rd floor. At this, she mentions that she saw his girlfriend in the elevator with a beer. He remembers his partner with the beer can and understands who she is talking about. With a smile, the young man explains that the girl is just a friend from work. The neighbor seems relieved by the news and gives a discreet smile. Reaching their doors, the two say goodbye and wish each other a good night. Already in his apartment, the protagonist gets out of the shower and dries his hair with a towel. Afterward, he eats some ramen with a rice cake and seems to really enjoy it. With a full stomach, the young man lies down on the bed to browse his phone for a bit. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, and he wonders who it could be. He asks who it is, and the person on the other side replies that it is the neighbor. Upon opening the door, the young man finds the neighbor standing in front of him, in casual clothes. She invites him to have a beer with her as a thank you. The agent is surprised by the neighbor's unexpected invitation. She keeps smiling and looks at him, waiting for an answer. The young man is in doubt and wonders if he should decline her invitation. She seems a bit embarrassed, and he decides to accept the invitation. She asks if they can go to his room, because hers is messy. The girl smiles and asks him to come over to her apartment in 5 minutes. With that, the neighbor goes into her apartment and closes the door hurriedly. She thinks she only threw the idea out there by chance, but he accepted and is already coming. In a panic, the girl starts cleaning and tidying up her apartment quickly. A moment later, the young man is at her door, and his combat instincts alert him. He thinks that in his past life he would have followed his instinct, but now it is different. The neighbor invites him in, and he decides not to follow his instincts this time. Inside the apartment, they drink and watch TV, and the girl apologizes for the snacks. She says she was very grateful for what he did, and in her mind, she plans to charm him. At that, The neighbor comments that she thinks he has changed a lot, and the young man is surprised. She explains that they have crossed paths before, and that she now feels his personality has changed. The protagonist replies with a distant look that many things have happened during this time. In his thoughts, he remembers that his original version ended up being eliminated. He was betrayed and taken out by his own organization before reincarnating. The young man was then revived in the body of another guy who had also passed away. After going through all that, he moved forward without looking back at his past. Instead, he focused on building the company alongside his new companions. Back in the present, the neighbor says, she does not know what he has been through, but she asks him to forget about it for now and just enjoy the moment with her. The agent looks at her for a moment and seems to consider the girl's proposal. With that, they toast with their beer cans and could continue the night together. Time passes, and several empty cans pile up on the small coffee table. The neighbor then asks again about the young man's female coworker. The young man smiles and says she is like a guy on the inside despite her appearance. The girl gets closer, saying that friends always say that, and he confirms it is true. With an alluring look, she leans in, wanting to know more about the truth. Suddenly, the neighbor gets close and rests her head on his shoulder. The guy is surprised and wonders if she really fell asleep out of nowhere. He watches her for a moment and seems a bit awkward with the situation. The night passes, and the sun begins to rise, illuminating the city once again. Then her phone rings at 6 in the morning, marking the start of a new day. At the sound of the alarm, the girl wakes up startled and completely confused. She finds herself in her bed and is confused, wondering what happened. Then she realizes that he put her to bed and left without doing anything. A while later, the neighbor is in the bathroom taking a shower to start the day. As the water falls, she thinks that she likes the guy even more now. Ready for work, the young woman leaves her apartment to go meet him, but the hallway is empty, and it seems he has already left for work. At this moment, the protagonist is already on his way to the office, all dressed up. He remembers the previous night when he carried her to bed while she was asleep. The young man was tempted to follow his instincts, but decided not to do so. In the end, he just covered her up and acted rationally so as not to take advantage. And now he feels pathetic for not being able to sleep properly after that. Walking, he takes out his cell phone and is surprised by a message he received. The scene cuts to his partner, who is also on public transportation heading to work. The train car is full, and several people are commuting to their jobs that morning. From afar, an operative watches the protagonist's partner in the train car. He is surprised to see her there and thinks about how she travels by subway. At that moment, the girl looks in the man's direction, as if sensing something. The operative wonders if she noticed him, but quickly dismisses the idea. The protagonist's partner gives a discreet smile and gets up to leave. She gets off at the station and starts climbing the stairs to the street calmly. The man with long hair follows her closely, without her noticing his presence. But upon reaching the street, the pink-haired girl disappears into the crowd. The operative is surprised and looks for her among the people. He wonders where she went so fast and gets frustrated for losing her. Suddenly, the man sees her further ahead and realizes she is waiting for him. He runs to catch up with her and wonders why she is walking so fast. The operative continues the pursuit and follows her down a busy street. He realizes he has been lured into a trap and goes on high alert. In an alley, she faces him and asks if he came to take her out right there. With a confident smile, she challenges him to try what he came to do. She points to his bag and tells him to use what is inside. The operative realizes she is not just a rich man's daughter. With a smile, he accepts the challenge and throws his bag on the ground. He attacks with a blade in a swift and precise motion against the girl. The pink-haired girl dodges the attack with agility and grace. The operative watches her and is impressed by her movements. She continues to dodge his strikes with incredible precision. The man is shocked and wonders what kind of moves those are. The protagonist's partner faces him and seems to be enjoying the fight. The operative is mesmerized for a moment and finds her very beautiful. Her beauty distracts him for a second, and he lowers his guard. Seeing the opening, The girl kicks him in the stomach with full force. The operative's weapon flies out of his hand from the impact of the kick. He gathers himself and tells himself not to be distracted by her beauty. The man remembers she is the target and lunges forward to continue the combat. She notices that he has gotten faster, and his attacks are stronger. The girl thinks he is just attacking wildly out of excitement, but she notes that his movements are calculated, and he is on another level. However, in 1 second his blade gets close to her face, but she easily dodges it. The operative continues his relentless attack and pressures her more and more. The girl gets annoyed, and a small cut appears on her face. She knows that if the fight continues like this, she will be in serious trouble. The blade the man was using is lying on the ground in the dark alley. The fight continues with the two moving at high speed through the alley. With that, the man quickly picks up his blade from the ground to continue the fight. But when he turns around, he is surprised by what he sees at that moment. The partner is now holding a weapon and says she is going to borrow his. The operative is paralyzed, not understanding where she pulled that from. Wasting no time, the girl charges forward and attacks him with her new weapon. At this, the man counterattacks and hits her leg with a precise strike. She thinks that in her original body, she would have caught the blow with just one hand. Suddenly, a bluish energy appears in the middle of the clash between the two. Her blade pierces his chest, and the man feels the pain of the strike. The protagonist arrives and watches the fight, thinking he came to the right place. In the blink of an eye, he runs toward the two at full speed. The young man lands a powerful kick on the operative, who is thrown far away. The man with long hair is shocked and asks who the newcomer is. Without answering, the protagonist lands a strong punch on the opponent's chest. He follows up with a sequence of fast and brutal strikes on the adversary. With one last devastating punch, the young man finishes the attack against the enemy. The partner says he understood the location she sent via the map. The guy explains that he was worried because she sent the message earlier. On the ground, the man thinks he could not react to the surprise attacks. Furthermore, he reflects on the impressive strength of the new opponent. The operative wonders if their confidence comes from being strong. He decides he will test whether their confidence is justified or just carelessness. Suddenly, the protagonist's eyes glow a deep and threatening red. The young man steps forward and unleashes a blast of blue energy at the enemy. He grabs the man's face forcefully and throws him violently to the ground. With a swift movement, the protagonist slams him hard onto the concrete floor. The guy pins him down and presses the man's blade against his neck. With the blade at his neck, the man asks if he was also sent by Xiaoguang. The protagonist replies that it was confidence, and the opponent does not understand. He confirms he was sent and wonders why they sent him on this mission. He understands that it is because she knows how to fight, and the girl picks up her weapon from the ground. The man adds that it is also because she has someone like him by her side. At this, the enemy asks with a curious look if the two are a couple. The young man denies the question, and the operative seems to understand the situation. The guy says to end the conversation, and the man asks him to wait. The protagonist surprises him and asks if he is interested in joining them. The girl smiles and says she wants him on the team, leaving the man shocked. The young man says it must be confusing to be recruited by your target right after failing. He replies that he is at his current company because he is good at what he does and makes good money. The girl asks if it is not out of loyalty, and he denies it, saying it is not that kind of company. The pink-haired girl proposes that if they let him go, he should think about her offer. The man asks what she will do if he comes back to try and take her out again. With a confident smile, she replies that she can just hear his answer at that time. The operative then agrees to the deal and asks them to let him leave. With that, he walks away down the alley, and the girl yells for him to think carefully about the proposal. He asks if that was a good idea, and she tells him to stay by her side if he is worried. Already far away, the man with long hair walks through the city deep in thought. In his thoughts, the operative remembers her smiling face and finds it beautiful. With a smile, he thinks that in order to see her again, he will have to go back and eliminate her.